He was born knowing he didn't belong in this world. Jotaro Kujo's soul, Naruto Uzumaki's body, Star Platinum's fists, and absolutely zero fucks to give. Every enemy he faced thought they had a chance. They didn't. They never did. Because you can't prepare for someone who's already died once and came back angrier. This is that story.
A heartbeat. That's all there was at the end. Jotaro Kujo stood in an ocean of white. His coat was torn. His hat was gone. Star Platinum hovered behind him, fading, flickering, its violet aura dimming like a candle at the bottom of the sea. The stand that had stopped time itself, the fist that had broken gods, was reaching out with open fingers towards something it could never hold. Jotaro looked down at his hands. They were old now, scarred. They had carried the weight of a bloodline curse for decades. They had punched through walls and men and fate and everything in between. They had held his daughter once, when she was small enough to fit in one palm. They had pushed the world away to keep it safe. He breathed out. Yar days. And the light swallowed him whole. On October 10th, in a village hidden among leaves and mountains and the bones of old wars, a baby was born screaming. But only for a moment. The midwife would talk about it for years afterward, in hushed tones over tea, in the kind of voice people use when they're trying to convince themselves they imagined something. She said the baby screamed once, a single sharp cry that cracked through the delivery room like a gunshot. Then the child went silent, eyes open, staring. Newborns don't stare. This one did, ice blue eyes, not the soft, unfocused gaze of an infant trying to understand light for the first time. These eyes were tracking, reading, processing, as if the brain behind them had already done this before and was deeply annoyed at having to do it again. The nine-tailed fox's chakra was sealed into the boy's stomach minutes later by the fourth Hokage, who died with his wife's name on his lips and his hand on his son's head. The child didn't cry. The third Hokage held the baby that night and felt something he couldn't explain. A weight, a density to the child's presence that made the old man's knees ache and his instincts scream in a frequency he hadn't felt since the last Great War. He looked down at the blonde-haired infant, silent, blue-eyed, watching him with an expression that had absolutely no business being on a face that young. "What are you?" the old man whispered. The baby blinked once, slowly, like it was disappointed in the question. They gave him his father's name, Naruto Uzumaki. They gave him an apartment at age 4, a monthly stipend that barely covered instant ramen, a village that looked at him like he was a natural disaster wearing a diaper. The standard orphan package in Konoha, neglect dressed up in policy. Naruto didn't care. This is the thing you need to understand about Naruto Uzumaki from the very beginning. He was never confused. He was never lost. He was never the crying kid staring through a window, wondering why nobody loved him. The universe had played that game with Jotaro Kujo for 47 years and gotten nothing but a middle finger and a stand rush for its trouble. From the moment Naruto could walk, he walked like a man who knew where he was going. From the moment he could think, he remembered everything. Every stand battle, every enemy, every road, every friend he'd failed to protect, and every monster he'd put in the ground. He remembered Daio's golden hair and the stopped clock tower. He remembered Polnareff's laugh. He remembered Kakyoin's last message written in emerald. He remembered his mother's voice. He remembered Star Platinum's first breath of existence, that moment in a jail cell when the world cracked open and something ancient and furious reached out from behind his soul and said, "I am here." Star Platinum was still here. Naruto felt it the first time when he was 3 years old. A group of villagers had gotten drunk on resentment and cheap sake and cornered him in an alley behind the market district. 3 grown men, 1 child. They were carrying bottles and broken broom handles, and the kind of courage that only exists when you outnumber something smaller than you. The first man swung. Something caught the broom handle in midair. Something massive and invisible, with fingers like iron bars and a grip that turned wood into splinters. The man felt the stick rip out of his hands with enough force to spin him in a full circle. Then something hit him in the chest. He flew backward 20 feet and hit a wall hard enough to leave cracks in the brick. He slid to the ground, gasping, ribs folded inward, unable to scream because his lungs had forgotten how. The other two men stared at the child. 3-year-old Naruto Uzumaki stood in the alley with his hands in his pockets. He hadn't moved. He was looking at them with the same expression a man uses when a fly lands on his food. They ran. Naruto watched them go. He sighed. A sound too old for a toddler, too heavy for a child, too familiar for a soul that had done this exact thing 1,000 times in another life. Yar days. He walked home alone. He made instant ramen. He sat on his bed and stared at the ceiling. Star Platinum hovered behind him, invisible, massive, violet-skinned and golden-eyed, its muscular frame filling the tiny apartment like a god crammed into a shoebox. It looked down at its user. Its face, as always, was unreadable. "We're doing this again?" Naruto said to the empty room. Star Platinum's fingers flexed. Good grief. The years passed and the legend started building itself. By age 5, Naruto Uzumaki stopped talking to most people. He answered questions in single words. He looked adults in the eye with a flatness that made Jonin uncomfortable. He walked through the market district like he owned every building on the street and simply hadn't bothered to collect rent. The villagers still hated him. They whispered demon and fox and all the other words that scared people use when they encounter something they can't control. But the whispers were quieter now, because every villager who had ever tried to touch Naruto Uzumaki had ended up in the hospital with injuries that defied medical explanation. Broken arms with no visible impact point, shattered ribs with no bruising on the skin. One man, a Chunin, no less, swore that something invisible had grabbed him by the ankle and thrown him into a dumpster from 30 feet away. The doctors couldn't explain it. The Anbu couldn't explain it. The Hokage read the reports with a pipe in his mouth and a weight in his chest that grew heavier every year. "The boy is different," the Anbu captain reported. "He moves like a trained operative. He reacts before threats materialize. He has never attended a single day of instruction, and yet I have personally witnessed him dodge a thrown kunai at age 6 from behind without turning around." The third Hokage puffed his pipe and stared out the window at the Hokage monument. And the incidents, the villagers who attacked him, every one of them describes the same thing: an invisible force, immense strength. They say it feels like being hit by a wall. The old man closed his eyes. "Increase the surveillance." "Sir, with respect, the last 3 Anbu we assigned to watch him all requested transfers within a week," they said. The captain hesitated. "They said what?" "They said the boy knew they were there, every time. From the first second. He would look directly at their hiding spots and stare." One operative described the experience as, quote, "the most unnerving thing that has happened to me in 14 years of active service." The Hokage said nothing for a long time. In his apartment across the village, Naruto Uzumaki was reading a marine biology textbook he'd stolen from the library. Star Platinum was holding the book open for him because he was too lazy to use both hands. He was 7. The thing about being a reincarnated stand user in a world full of ninja is that nobody understands what they're looking at. Chakra was everywhere in this world. People breathed it. They weaponized it. They made fire with their fingers and walked on water and summoned animals the size of buildings. They had an entire framework: jutsu, hand signs, chakra nature, bloodline limits, a whole taxonomy of power that made sense to them, that fit into neat categories and rankings and threat assessments. Star Platinum fit into none of it. Naruto had spent years analyzing the differences. In his old life, stands were manifestations of the soul, fighting spirits that existed outside the laws of physics. They weren't magic. They weren't science. They were something else entirely, a category of power so alien that even the smartest minds in that world could only barely begin to classify them. In this world, Star Platinum existed in the gap between what ninja could see and what they could understand. It produced no chakra signature. It left no elemental residue. It was invisible to the Byakugan. He tested this accidentally when a Hyuga branch member had tried to analyze him on the street and reported seeing nothing unusual about the boy's chakra network. Because Star Platinum wasn't chakra, it was a stand. It was his soul given form. And there was nothing in any scroll, any jutsu library, any forbidden archive in the 5 great nations that could explain it, counter it, or stop it. This gave Naruto Uzumaki two things: an overwhelming tactical advantage and absolute peace of mind. He didn't need to learn ninjutsu. He didn't need to practice hand signs. He didn't need to spend years molding chakra into elemental shapes and hoping the fireball came out right. He had Star Platinum. Star Platinum hit harder than any jutsu. Star Platinum moved faster than any ninja he'd seen so far. Star Platinum could catch blades and needles and projectiles out of the air like a man picking lint off a coat. He did keep himself in shape, though. Jotaro Kujo had always been built like a freight train wrapped in a school uniform, and some habits carry across lives. By age 10, Naruto was doing 500 push-ups before breakfast. By 11, he could crack a wooden training post with a bare-handed punch, his own fist, not Star Platinum's. By 12, he stood 6'5", 6'5" at 12 years old. The academy instructors measured him 3 times because they were sure the measuring tape was broken. It was not broken. Naruto Uzumaki was simply a monument to whatever cosmic forces had decided that this soul, the soul of a man who had punched a vampire into the Egyptian sunrise, deserved a body that matched the attitude. He was broad-shouldered, sharp-jawed, blonde hair that spiked upward and backward in a wild mane that somehow, against all logic, blended seamlessly into the brim of his hat. Because yes, he had a hat. He'd had one custom made at age 10 by a confused but compliant tailor in the market district. A wide-brimmed cap, deep indigo, that merged with his hair at the back so you couldn't tell where the fabric ended and the blonde began. He wore a long black coat, high-collared. It fell to his knees. A gold chain hung from the lapel. Underneath, a plain shirt and pants, always clean, always fitted. He walked with his hands in his pockets and his chin tilted down, eyes hidden under the hat's brim. He looked like the final boss of something. At 12, the academy years were a masterclass in the art of not caring. Naruto Uzumaki enrolled at the standard age because the Hokage politely insisted, and Naruto decided it was less effort to attend than to argue about it. He showed up on the first day, walked past 30 staring children without acknowledging a single one, sat in the very last seat of the back row, pulled his hat over his eyes, and went to sleep. Iruka Umino, the instructor, a kind man with a scar across his nose and more patience than any single human should possess, tried to wake him up for roll call. Naruto Uzumaki? No response. Naruto Uzumaki, please respond. A grunt from under the hat. I need you to confirm your attendance. The hat tilted up 1 inch. A single blue eye appeared beneath the brim. It looked at Iruka with an expression that communicated with perfect clarity. I am here. You can see me. We both know I am here. Why are you making sounds at me right now? Present then, Iruka said and moved on. This set the tone for the next 4 years. Naruto attended class. He sat in the back. He slept or read manga. He had somehow acquired a collection of marine biology magazines and fishing catalogs that he guarded with more intensity than most genin guarded mission scrolls. When teachers asked him questions, he answered them correctly, without lifting his head, without opening both eyes, in the fewest possible words. Naruto, what are the 3 basic types of jutsu? Ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu. Can you elaborate on? No. Moving on. His grades were strange. He scored perfectly on every written exam, every single one without exception, from the first test to the last. His handwriting was atrocious, chicken scratches and angry strokes, but every answer was correct, every analysis was sound, and his strategic assessments were so advanced that Iruka once showed one to a jonin for a second opinion, and the jonin asked which instructor had written it. In practical exercises, Naruto didn't participate. He stood in place during sparring. He let opponents attack first. Then the opponent would suddenly be on the ground, gasping with no clear memory of what had happened. No one ever saw him throw a punch. His body barely moved. Something about the air around him just rearranged things. The other students learned quickly. By the second month, nobody challenged Naruto Uzumaki to anything. They walked around him the way water walks around a rock, naturally, instinctively, without thinking about it. Except 3 people. Sakura Haruno noticed him first. It happened on a Wednesday. She was 12, obsessed with Sasuke Uchiha like every other girl in the academy, and minding her own business on the way to class when she turned a corner and walked directly into Naruto Uzumaki's chest. It was like walking into a wall that smelled like ocean salt and something dangerously close to expensive cologne. She bounced off. She looked up and up and up. He looked down. Blue eyes, blonde hair, sharp jawline, the hat, the coat, the golden chain. The complete and total absence of expression on a face that belonged on the cover of a magazine she would absolutely buy 17 copies of. Sakura's brain went offline. "Watch where you're going," Naruto said, and walked around her like she was a traffic cone. From that day forward, Sakura Haruno's Sasuke obsession developed a fatal crack down the middle. She tried to fight it. She tried to stay loyal to the brooding Uchiha boy she'd crushed on since childhood. But every time Naruto walked into the classroom, hat low, coat flowing, hands in pockets, completely ignoring every living thing in a 50-foot radius, something in her chest did a backflip that Sasuke had never once triggered. Ino Yamanaka noticed approximately 45 seconds after Sakura did, because Ino noticed everything Sakura noticed and then fought about it. The two of them would spend entire lunch periods arguing in heated whispers about whether Naruto was cool or just rude, which was really just code for "I am developing feelings I am deeply unprepared for, and I need someone to yell at." And then there was Hinata Hyuga. Hinata had been watching Naruto from a distance since the academy started, in the way that only a terminally shy girl with a bloodline limit that lets her see through walls can watch someone. She memorized his schedule. She knew which seat he sat in. She knew what time he arrived and what time he left, and exactly how many fishing magazines he'd read that week. She loved him completely and was absolutely incapable of being within 15 feet of him without turning the color of a tomato and making a sound like a tea kettle that someone had forgotten to take off the heat. One day, she worked up enough courage to approach him during lunch. It took her 20 minutes to cross the courtyard. Each step was a war against every instinct in her body screaming at her to retreat. She made it to within 5 feet. Naruto was leaning against a tree, hat over his eyes, apparently asleep. "In, Naruto-kun. I made you. I made." One eye opened beneath the hat. Hinata went rigid. She was holding a boxed lunch with shaking hands. Her face was so red it was almost purple. Her mouth was open, but no further words were coming out. She looked like a computer that had encountered a fatal error. Naruto stared at her for 3 full seconds. "Yakamashi," he said. "You're loud." Hinata fainted. The boxed lunch hit the ground. Naruto looked at the unconscious girl on the grass. He looked at the lunch. He looked back at the girl. Yar days. He picked up the lunchbox. He opened it. Rice balls with seaweed faces. Perfectly made. He ate every single one. When Hinata woke up 10 minutes later, she found the empty box placed neatly next to her head with a single word written on a napkin in terrible handwriting. Good. She fainted again. Now about Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke had been the top of the class, the golden boy, the last Uchiha, the tragic prodigy with the dead family and the burning eyes, and the aura of someone who carried the weight of a clan's genocide on shoulders that were too young for the burden. Every girl wanted him. Every boy wanted to be him. Every instructor watched him with the careful attention reserved for once-in-a-generation talent. Then Naruto Uzumaki walked in and sat down, and the entire hierarchy of the academy collapsed like a house of cards in a hurricane. Sasuke felt it on the first day. A pressure. A density in the room that pulled focus like gravity pulls objects, involuntary, constant, inescapable. He looked at the back row and saw a figure in a black coat sleeping with a hat over his face, and something primal in the back of his brain. The same instinct that had kept his ancestors alive through centuries of warfare said very clearly, that one is dangerous. Sasuke tried to establish dominance. Of course he did. He was 12 and angry, and the only way he knew how to process the world was through the lens of power and hierarchy. He challenged Naruto to a spar during the second week. The whole class gathered. Iruka supervised. Sasuke stood in the ring with his fists raised, Sharingan not yet awakened, but his form perfect, his speed already above anything a student his age should possess. He was fast. He was skilled. He was the pride of the Uchiha bloodline made manifest in a boy who had more reason to fight than anyone his age should ever have. Naruto stood across from him with his hands in his pockets. "Begin," Iruka called. Sasuke moved. Fast, a textbook opening strike, right cross aimed at the jaw, stepping into it with his full body weight, just like the Uchiha combat manuals taught. It was clean. It was precise. It would have knocked out any other student in the class. His fist stopped 6 inches from Naruto's face. Sasuke's entire arm was locked in place. Something invisible had caught his wrist. Something with a grip so solid it felt like his hand had been cemented into a wall. He pulled. He wrenched. He twisted. His arm did not move 1 millimeter. Naruto looked at him, both eyes open now, the hat casting a shadow over the upper half of his face, leaving only his mouth visible. And his mouth was flat, unimpressed, bored. "You done?" Naruto asked. Sasuke swung with his left hand. That stopped too. Both wrists now locked in invisible iron. Naruto sighed. Then Sasuke was on the ground. He didn't know how he got there. One moment he was standing with both arms locked, and the next he was on his back staring at the sky with his lungs empty and a pain in his chest, like someone had pressed a thumb into his sternum with the force of a falling boulder. He hadn't seen the hit. Nobody had. Naruto was already walking out of the ring, hands in pockets, hat low. He didn't look back. "That's it," someone whispered from the crowd. "Did anyone see what happened?" Iruka muttered, eyes wide. Sasuke lay on the ground for a long time. His body was fine. Physically, nothing was broken, nothing was torn. But something inside his worldview had just developed a fracture that would never fully heal. He had been the best. He had always been the best. And this person, this tall, coat-wearing, hat-tilting stranger, had ended the fight without Sasuke ever seeing how. From that day forward, Sasuke Uchiha looked at Naruto Uzumaki and felt something he had only ever felt toward one other person, his brother. The gap, the incomprehensible, lost, maddening gap between where he stood and where someone else existed. Naruto, for his part, never thought about Sasuke at all. The graduation exam came and went like a breeze. Naruto showed up. He performed the required clone technique, and here's the thing nobody expected. He performed it flawlessly. 3 perfect clones standing in a line, each one a mirror image down to the hat and the coat. The instructors were stunned because the village records showed that Naruto Uzumaki had never once practiced the clone technique in class. "How?" Iruka asked. "It's a basic technique," Naruto said, like the question was an insult. He passed. Top marks. He collected his headband, tied it around his arm because the hat took priority on his head, and walked out of the building without attending the graduation ceremony. But graduation wasn't the story. The story was what happened that night. Mizuki. You need to understand who Mizuki was to appreciate what happened to him. He was a Chunin instructor at the academy. Average skill, above average resentment, the kind of man who smiled at children while keeping a mental list of who he'd sacrifice first if it meant getting ahead. He hated Naruto Uzumaki specifically and personally, the way small people hate things they're afraid of. And he had a plan. The plan was simple. Trick the demon brat into stealing the forbidden scroll of seals from the Hokage's archive. Frame him. Get him executed or exiled. Use the chaos to steal the scroll for himself and defect to Orochimaru with a gift that would buy him power beyond anything the village had ever offered. He approached Naruto after the graduation exam with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, and a story about a secret test, a bonus exam that would earn Naruto a special rank if he could retrieve a specific scroll from the Hokage's vault. Naruto looked at him for a long time. "You want me to steal the forbidden scroll?" Naruto said flatly. Mizuki's smile flickered. No, it's a special. You're going to use me as a scapegoat. Take the scroll and defect." The smile died. Mizuki's face went through about 7 emotions in 2 seconds, settling on a pale, sweating panic. "I don't know what you..." "I figured it out," Naruto said. "The second you opened your mouth, your breathing pattern changed when you said special rank. Your pupils dilated when you mentioned the scroll. You shifted your weight to your back foot. Exit strategy. You were ready to run if I said no." Mizuki stared at him. The boy was 12. He was talking like an interrogation specialist. "Here's what's going to happen," Naruto continued. He adjusted his hat. "I'm going to play along. I'm going to take the scroll, and you're going to show up to collect it, because you're too greedy to abandon the plan even though you're scared right now. And when you do..." He paused. A single eye gleamed under the brim. "I'll be waiting." 2 hours later, in a moonlit clearing in the forest outside the village, everything went exactly as Naruto predicted. Iruka arrived first, panicked, having learned about the stolen scroll. He found Naruto sitting on the ground with the massive scroll propped against a tree beside him, unopened. Naruto was reading a fishing magazine. "Naruto, what are you doing? The entire village is looking for you. They think you stole the—" "I did steal it," Naruto said, turning a page. "On purpose. Sit down, Iruka-sensei. He'll be here in about 3 minutes." "Who will be?" A giant shuriken screamed out of the tree line. It was aimed at Iruka's spine, a killing blow from the shadows, fast, spinning, razor-edged. The kind of attack designed to end a life before the victim knew it had started. Iruka heard the sound too late. He began to turn. The shuriken stopped. It just stopped in midair. 3 inches from Iruka's back, hanging there, vibrating, gripped by something invisible. Naruto didn't look up from his magazine. "Predictable," he said. The shuriken crumpled, folded in on itself like tinfoil in a fist. Then it was launched back into the tree line at twice its original speed. A scream, a crash. Mizuki stumbled out of the trees, bleeding from a gash across his shoulder where his own weapon had been returned to sender with interest. His face was twisted in rage and terror, in the particular brand of ugly that surfaces when a plan collapses in real time. You demon!" Mizuki screamed. "You think you can stop me? Do you even know what you are? You're the 9-tailed fox, the monster that destroyed this village. Everyone hates you. You were never meant to." Naruto closed his magazine. He stood up, slowly, the way a mountain stands up. The coat settled around his frame. The chain glinted in the moonlight. He adjusted his hat with one hand, pulling the brim down so his eyes were hidden in shadow. Yar days. His voice was low, flat, carrying a weight that made the air feel heavier. "You truly are the lowest scum in history." Mizuki's face went white. Every instinct in his body, every survival mechanism honed by years of shinobi training, fired at once. They all said the same thing. The same single word, run. He didn't run fast enough. Star Platinum. The air behind Naruto rippled. Something manifested, or more accurately, something that had always been there chose to exert itself in a way the physical world could feel. Iruka saw nothing. What Iruka felt was a pressure wave that made his ears pop and his knees buckle and every hair on his body stand at rigid attention. Naruto took one step forward. Mizuki threw a kunai. Star Platinum caught it between its thumb and forefinger without Naruto breaking stride. The kunai turned to dust in the stand's grip. Mizuki pulled out a second giant shuriken and swung it like a melee weapon, screaming, desperate, the kind of cornered animal aggression that happens when a coward realizes they have nowhere left to go. The shuriken connected with something. It stopped dead, the metal ringing like a bell. Mizuki's arms went numb from the vibration. Aura! A single hit, one punch from Star Platinum, delivered to the center of Mizuki's chest. Invisible, unstoppable. Carrying the force of something that existed beyond the rules of this world, the sound was thunderous. A concussive boom that stripped leaves off trees in a 20-foot radius and sent a shockwave rolling through the clearing that Iruka felt in his teeth. Mizuki left the ground. He flew backward, not fell, flew, horizontal, like a cannonball in reverse. He hit a tree. The tree exploded. He hit the tree behind that tree. That one cracked in half. He hit the hillside behind the forest and embedded himself in the dirt, leaving an impact crater 6 feet wide. He didn't get up. He was breathing. Barely. Every rib in his body was broken. His sternum was fractured. His arms were twisted at angles that made Iruka's stomach turn. He was alive because Naruto had pulled the punch. That's the part that scared Iruka the most. Afterward, thinking about it, replaying it in his mind. That destruction, that absolute, overwhelming, one-sided annihilation was the held-back version. Naruto stood in the clearing. He hadn't broken a sweat. His coat wasn't wrinkled. His hat was perfectly in place. He looked at Iruka. "You okay, sensei?" Iruka's mouth was open. His eyes were the size of dinner plates. He was trying to form words, but his brain was still buffering. What was? "He'll live," Naruto said, glancing at the Mizuki-shaped hole in the hillside. "Probably. Grab the scroll. I'm going home." He picked up his fishing magazine from the ground, dusted it off, and walked out of the clearing. Iruka stood alone in the silence, surrounded by destroyed trees and displaced earth in a crater that shouldn't exist. and tried very hard to understand what he had just witnessed. He couldn't. He reported to the Hokage that night. The old man listened to every word, puffed his pipe, stared at the ceiling. "Hiruzen-sama," Iruka said, his voice still shaking slightly. "What is that, boy?" The third Hokage was silent for a very long time. "Something this village isn't ready for," he said eventually. Team assignments happened the next morning. Naruto arrived late. Not fashionably late, not rudely late, but the kind of late that communicated, "I came when I wanted to come, and you're lucky I came at all." He walked into the classroom, ignored Iruka's pointed look, stepped over 3 students, and sat in his usual seat. The room was buzzing with excitement. Kids whispering about teams, about senseis, about missions, dreams of glory and adventure, and all the bright, naive things that children who haven't been to war dream about. "Team 7, Iruka announced, reading from a clipboard. "Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno." A pause rippled through the room. Sakura made a sound that was halfway between a gasp and a squeal. Her inner monologue, if it had been visible, would have been a car crash of conflicting emotions. Joy at being on Naruto's team, confusion at being on Sasuke's team, absolute overload at being on both of their teams. Sasuke said nothing. His jaw tightened. His eyes flickered to the back of the room. To the figure in the black coat, Naruto didn't react at all. "Your Jonin sensei will be Kakashiha," Iruka added. The name meant nothing to Naruto. In his previous life, he had fought stand users who could stop time, erase space, and rewrite reality. One more teacher was one more teacher. Kakashi Hatake showed up 3 hours late. This was, apparently, standard. Sakura complained. Sasuke brooded. Naruto had pulled his hat down over his face and gone to sleep the instant Iruka left, and was still asleep when the door finally slid open, and a silver-haired man with a mask and a lazy eye strolled in with all the urgency of someone on a vacation he didn't ask for. "Yo," Kakashi said. Sakura exploded. "You're 3 hours late!" Naruto's hat tilted up half an inch. One eye appeared. Kakashi looked at his team. A pink-haired girl vibrating with frustration, a black-haired boy radiating intensity, and a 6'5" blonde in a coat and hat who was looking at him with the energy of a man who had been mildly inconvenienced by the existence of time itself. Interesting, Kakashi thought. "Meet me on the roof," he said, and disappeared. The roof introduction was brief. "Tell me your names, your likes, your dislikes, your dreams," Kakashi said, leaning against the railing with his orange book in hand. Sakura went first. Likes, stealing glances at Naruto and Sasuke. Dislikes, Ino. Dreams, a long rambling sentence that devolved into incoherent blushing. Sasuke went second. Likes, nothing. Dislikes, a lot of things. Dream, to kill a certain man and restore his clan. Standard Sasuke fare. Naruto went last. He tilted his hat up, looked at Kakashi. Naruto Uzumaki. I like the ocean, dolphins, being left alone. I dislike loud people, bad liars, and people who hurt those weaker than them. My dreams, he paused, adjusted his hat. I don't have one. I had my fill of dreams in another life. Silence, Kakashi blinked. Sakura frowned. Sasuke's eye twitched. Well, Kakashi said, that was unexpectedly deep. Moving on. Tomorrow, training ground 3. Don't eat breakfast, you'll throw up. Naruto stood, put his hands in his pockets, and walked away without being dismissed. Kakashi watched him go. That kid, the copy ninja thought, is going to be a headache. The bell test, training ground 3. Morning. A field with 3 wooden posts and a memorial stone. Kakashi arrived, late again, and found Sasuke standing tensely, Sakura sitting nervously, and Naruto leaning against the middle post with his hat over his eyes. The fishing magazine was back. He'd brought a new one. All right, Kakashi said, holding up 2 silver bells. The rules are simple. Take these bells from me before noon. If you can't, you go back to the academy. Come at me with the intent to kill or you won't stand a chance. He said that last part looking directly at Naruto. Naruto turned a page. Begin. Sasuke vanished into the trees. Sakura dove behind a bush. Standard evasion tactics. Hide first, plan second, attack third. Naruto didn't move. Kakashi looked at him. You're not going to hide? No. Confident or foolish? Neither. I'm just going to take the bells. Kakashi's visible eye crinkled in amusement. He slipped the bells into his hip pouch and settled into a ready stance. He'd fought in a war. He'd copied 1,000 jutsu. He had the Sharingan behind that headband, and decades of combat experience that put him in the upper echelon of every shinobi alive. He moved first. Jonin speed. Full commitment. He blurred behind Naruto in the time it took a normal human to blink. The Leaf's signature high-speed headlock approach. One hand reaching for the back of the boy's collar, the other preparing a submission hold. He stopped. He stopped because something had him by the throat. Kakashi's feet were off the ground. He was suspended in the air, his hands 6 inches from Naruto's collar, his body frozen by an invisible grip wrapped around his neck. The grip wasn't choking him, but it could. It very obviously could. It was holding him the way a man holds a misbehaving kitten, effortlessly and with full authority. Naruto hadn't moved. His hat was still down. The magazine was still open, but something behind him, something Kakashi could feel but couldn't see, something massive and dense and humming with a power that the Sharingan would never be able to copy because it wasn't chakra, had caught the legendary copy ninja out of the air like a man catching a ball thrown by a child. You left yourself wide open, Sensei. Naruto stood up. He closed the magazine. He reached over, slowly, casually, the way someone picks a piece of lint off a friend's jacket and unclipped Kakashi's hip pouch. He opened it, removed both bells, held them up. They jingled. Kakashi hung in the air, feet dangling, one visible eye wide. His heart was pounding. His Sharingan itched behind the headband. Every sense he had was screaming at him that something was wrong, that the thing holding him was real and powerful and completely outside any category of threat he had ever encountered in 30 years of service. Can you put me down? He managed. The grip released. Kakashi landed on his feet, stumbling slightly, and stared at the 12-year-old in front of him. Naruto tossed one bell to Sasuke, who had emerged from the trees with an expression of complete bewilderment. He tossed the other to Sakura, who caught it on reflex and immediately forgot what it was because she was too busy staring at Naruto with her mouth hanging open. There, Naruto said. We're done. Kakashi stood in the field for a long time. He was thinking about all the reports he'd read about this kid. The Mizuki incident, the academy records, the Anbu surveillance logs. He'd taken this assignment because the Hokage had asked him to, had practically begged him, actually with a look in his eyes that Kakashi had never seen before. A look that said, I need someone I trust to watch this boy, because I don't understand what he is, and what I don't understand keeps me up at night. Kakashi understood now. He looked at the boy in the coat, the hat, the gold chain, the absolute indifference radiating off him like heat off asphalt. Team 7 passes, Kakashi said, and his voice sounded strange to his own ears. Naruto was already walking away. From the hidden rooftop above Training Ground 3, 2 Anbu operatives stared at each other. Did you see what caught him? The first one asked. No. Kakashi-senpai is an S-rank Jonin. Yes. And a 12-year-old just grabbed him out of the air. Yes. With nothing. Yes. They filed their reports. The Hokage read them. He poured himself something stronger than tea. Team 7's first few weeks were uneventful. D-rank missions, catching cats, pulling weeds, delivering packages. The kind of grunt work that was designed to build teamwork and patience and all the boring virtues that matter in the long run. Naruto did them. He didn't complain. He also didn't engage. He caught the cat in 11 seconds. He pulled the weeds without bending down. Something invisible ripped them out of the ground in a perfect circle around wherever he was standing. He delivered every package on time and without damage, and the clients tipped him extra because they were too intimidated to do otherwise. Sakura kept trying to talk to him. She'd refined her approach from charging in blind to walking up casually with a prepared conversation topic, which was an improvement, but the results were the same. Naruto, do you like dango? There's a shop near the Yakamashi. But shut up, you're annoying. Sakura wilted. She came back, but she came back. She always came back. There was something magnetic about him, a gravity that pulled people in even as his words pushed them away. She couldn't explain it. Neither could Ino, who had taken to accidentally showing up wherever Team 7 was training. Neither could Hinata, who had started fainting preemptively whenever she saw a black coat in her peripheral vision. Sasuke, meanwhile, was becoming obsessed. He watched Naruto constantly, studied him, analyzed every movement, every non-reaction, every display of effortless superiority. The spar at the academy, the bell test, The way Kakashi, a legendary Jonin, treated Naruto with a deference that he showed to no one else on the team. Sasuke wasn't angry. That would come later. Right now, he was hungry. He saw in Naruto what he saw in his brother, a ceiling so high above him that it might as well be the sky. He trained harder. He trained until his knuckles bled. He trained at midnight and at dawn and at every hour between. He was going to close the gap, or he was going to die trying. Naruto didn't notice. Naruto was reading about Starfish, the land of waves. Tazuna, a bridge builder with a drinking problem and a death wish, hired Team 7 for what was supposed to be a simple escort mission. C rank, safe, boring. It was none of those things. The first sign of trouble came on the road. Two Chunin from the hidden mist, disguised as puddles on the ground, burst from the water with chain weapons aimed at Kakashi's spine. They were fast. They were synchronized. Their chain wrapped around Kakashi in a heartbeat and yanked in opposite directions. One down. One of them started. Naruto's side, two sounds, two thuds, two bodies hitting the dirt. Star Platinum had grabbed the chain with one hand, ripped both Chunin off their feet, and slammed them into each other with enough force to crack their masks and helmets and most of the bones underneath. They crumpled into a pile of unconscious limbs and broken metal. The whole thing took less than a second. Kakashi emerged from the trees. He'd substituted out of the chain at the last instant and looked at the pile of enemy ninja on the ground. Then at Naruto. Then back at the pile. "I had that," Kakashi said. "Sure," Naruto replied. Tazuna clutched his sake bottle with trembling hands. What is this kid?" Nobody answered him because nobody knew. They continued to the land of waves. Tazuna confessed that the real threat was Gato, a shipping magnate and crime lord who owned the country and killed anyone who stood against him. The mission was far above C rank. It was A rank at minimum. They should go back. Kakashi looked at his team. Sasuke was resolute. Sakura was frightened but determined. Naruto was staring at the ocean with an expression that, if you squinted, almost looked like nostalgia. "We continue," Kakashi said. Naruto said nothing. He was thinking about a boat trip he'd taken once a long time ago across a different ocean with friends who were dead now. A Frenchman with a silver sword. A fortune teller with hair like a cherry. A dog and its master. A little man who didn't look like much, but had the biggest heart of anyone he'd ever known. He pushed the memory down. It didn't hurt. Not anymore. But it had weight. The mist rolled in on the second day. It came fast and thick and wrong. It filled the air like cotton and killed visibility to 0 in seconds. This wasn't weather. This was jutsu. Naruto recognized the technique from the briefing. Hidden Mist Jutsu, the signature technique of the Mist's assassination core. A blanket of water vapor so dense that even the Sharingan struggled to penetrate it. Star Platinum didn't rely on sight. Naruto felt the attack coming before it arrived. Star Platinum's senses, faster than human, sharper than any bloodline limit, registered the displacement of air, the shift in weight distribution, the vibration through the ground as someone very large took a running step and swung something very heavy. The executioner's blade. Kubikirabocho, a cleaver the size of a grown man, designed to decapitate in a single stroke, wielded by one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Zabuza Momochi stepped out of the fog swinging his legendary sword in a horizontal arc aimed at Naruto's neck. The blade moved fast enough to whistle. It carried enough force to bisect a tree. Every edge of it was honed to an atomic sharpness that had tasted the blood of 100 men. It stopped. It stopped because something invisible had pinched it between 2 fingers. The executioner's blade, a weapon that had cut through chakra-reinforced armor, through stone, through steel, was held in place between Star Platinum's thumb and forefinger like a playing card caught in a door jamb. Zabuza's forward momentum died. His arms shuddered. His eyes went wide behind his bandage mask. What? Naruto was standing directly in the path of the swing. He hadn't flinched. He hadn't moved. He was looking up at Zabuza with one hand in his pocket and an expression of faint irritation, the way someone looks at a neighbor's dog that keeps barking at 3 in the morning. "Yar days," he said. "A sword, really?" Zabuza pulled. The blade didn't budge. He pulled harder. He planted his feet and yanked with everything he had, 200 pounds of hardened muscle and killing intent, straining against an immovable force. The blade didn't move 1 inch. "My turn," Naruto said. "Aura, aura, 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 aura!" The aura aura rush. Star Platinum's fists came down like a curtain of violence. Hundreds of punches in the span of 2 seconds. Each one invisible. Each one carrying the force of a wrecking ball compressed into a fist-sized point of impact. They hit the flat of the executioner's blade first, and the legendary weapon splintered, crumbled, disintegrated. Fragments of steel sprayed outward like confetti made of razors. Then the fists found Zabuza. The first punch hit his chest and broke his sternum. The second and third punches caved in his ribs on both sides simultaneously. The 4th through 20th punches turned his flak jacket into fabric confetti. The 21st through 50th punches were a symphony of concussive force that launched Zabuza off the bridge and across the surface of the lake like a stone skipping on water. Except stones don't leave craters in the water, and stones don't scream. Zabuza hit the far shore. The impact displaced enough water to create a wave that rocked the bridge. He lay in a crater of broken earth and scattered lake water, his bandaged mask torn, blood pouring from his mouth and nose, staring at the sky with the expression of a man who had just been hit by a freight train that he never saw coming. Silence. The mist was clearing. Zabuza's concentration was broken, obviously, because it's hard to maintain a jutsu when your concentration is being held together by 2 cracked ribs and a prayer. Kakashi stared. Sakura stared. Sasuke stared. Tazuna dropped his sake bottle. It fell off the bridge and into the water. He didn't notice. Naruto adjusted his coat, dusted off the shoulder where a fragment of the blade had bounced off Star Platinum's defense and landed on his lapel. He looked at the carnage across the lake with the expression of someone who had just taken out the trash. "Stay down," he called out. Zabuza stayed down. The aftermath was chaos wrapped in disbelief. Kakashi examined the impact site from a distance and said nothing for 5 straight minutes. When he finally spoke, it was to no one in particular. "The executioner's blade is gone. Just gone." "He broke it," Sakura whispered. She was hugging herself. She'd watched the whole thing through the thinning mist, and her brain was still trying to categorize what she'd seen. It didn't fit anywhere. It didn't belong in any lesson she'd ever been taught. He broke a legendary weapon with what? "I didn't see anything." "Nobody did," Sasuke said. His voice was flat, but his fists were clenched at his sides, knuckles white. Naruto was already walking ahead toward Tazuna's house. He had his hands in his pockets and his magazine tucked under his arm. "Are we going or what?" he called back. They stayed at Tazuna's house while the bridge neared completion. Zabuza was alive, barely, and had been taken in by his tool, Haku, a young man with a face like a porcelain doll and a bloodline limit that turned water into mirrors of ice. Naruto knew they'd be back. Zabuza was the type. Broken bones healed, wounded pride didn't. He spent the downtime fishing, actually fishing, with a rod and a line, and the patience of a man who had spent an entire past life appreciating the ocean. He sat on the dock behind Tazuna's house and pulled fish out of the water, while Sakura tried to make conversation, and Sasuke trained himself into the ground, and Kakashi read his book in a tree. It was almost peaceful. Then the bridge happened. Morning fog. The bridge was nearly complete. Tazuna's workers had fled, threatening notes, broken equipment, the standard Gato intimidation package. Only Tazuna himself was working, and Team 7 was guarding him. They arrived at the bridge to find the workers' bodies. Beaten, bloody, alive but broken, and standing in the mist at the center of the bridge, Zabuza, bandaged and furious, and beside him, Haku, wearing a mask painted like a demon face, surrounded by floating mirrors of ice. "Round 2, you brats," Zabuza growled. Kakashi stepped forward, pulling his headband up to reveal the Sharingan. "I'll handle Zabuza, Naruto." "I know," Naruto said. Haku moved first. The ice mirrors formed in a dome around Sasuke, who had charged forward to prove something, because of course he had. Trapping him in a cage of reflective ice, Haku flickered between the mirrors, appearing in all of them simultaneously, launching Senbon needles from every angle at once. Sasuke dodged the first volley. The second caught him in the arm. The third in the leg. He was bleeding, struggling, trying to track the movement with his eyes, but failing because Haku was faster than anything he'd ever faced. Naruto walked toward the dome. "Naruto, stay back!" Sakura shouted. "The mirrors." He walked through the entrance, stepped into the dome like he was stepping into a room. Haku paused inside one of the mirrors. Behind the mask, eyes widened. This boy just walked into the kill zone voluntarily. "You should leave," Haku said, voice soft and even. "I have no desire to kill you, but I will if I must." "Yar days," Naruto said. "You talk too much." Haku launched 1,000 Senbon from every mirror at once. A storm of needles that filled the air inside the dome like rain made of steel. Enough to turn a human body into a pincushion. Enough to every pressure point, every vital organ, every square inch of exposed flesh. Star Platinum caught them. Every single one. Star Platinum's hands moved in a blur, hundreds of catches per second. Each needle plucked from the air with 2 fingers and held for a fraction of an instant before being flicked aside. The Senbon rained down around Naruto's feet like harmless seeds falling from a tree. 1,000 needles, caught by an invisible hand, in perfect timing. Naruto didn't even blink. Sasuke, on his knees behind Naruto, watched with his mouth open. In that moment, staring at Naruto's back, something in his eyes changed. Red bled into black. Tomoe spun into existence. The Sharingan awakened, and the first thing it ever saw was the silhouette of Naruto Uzumaki standing untouched in a hurricane of needles. Haku's hands trembled inside the mirror. "Impossible," Haku whispered. Naruto walked forward. He raised one fist, his own fist, no Star Platinum, just knuckles and bone and the muscle of a boy built like a monument. He hit the first mirror. It cracked. He hit the second mirror. It broke in half. He hit the third, fourth, and fifth mirrors in a single sweeping motion, and they burst into fragments of ice that scattered across the bridge like broken stained glass. Haku fell out of the dome, mask cracked, landing on the bridge in a heap. The remaining mirrors lost cohesion and collapsed. Naruto stood over the fallen ninja. Haku was young, younger than him, maybe. A kid with a tragic past and a bloodline gift that had made him a weapon for someone else's war. The mask was broken enough to show one eye, wide and frightened and resigned. Naruto looked down at him for a long time. "I don't hit kids who are just following orders," he said. His voice was low, almost gentle, the closest he ever came to softness. "But stay down." He set Haku on the ground carefully and turned away. Sasuke was on his knees, blood dripping from a dozen needle punctures, Sharingan spinning in his newly awakened eyes. He was staring at Naruto's back. The expression on his face was impossible to read. Awe and fury and something that looked dangerously close to worship, all tangled together in a knot that would take years to untangle. Across the bridge, Kakashi and Zabuza's fight had ended. Zabuza was down. Kakashi had used the opening created by Naruto's dismantling of Haku's mirrors to drive through Zabuza's defenses. The Demon of the Mist was on his knees, defeated again, bleeding from a dozen cuts. But before the final blow could land, the fog parted, Gato. The shipping magnate himself, flanked by 200 hired mercenaries, bandits, ronin, thugs, every scrap of violent muscle money could buy. He stood at the end of the bridge with a walking cane and a sneer, and the unearned confidence of a man who had always paid others to be dangerous on his behalf. Well, Gato said, tapping his cane. "The great Zabuza, beaten by children. How disappointing. I was never going to pay you anyway, you know." Zabuza's fist clenched. Betrayal flashed across his bandaged face. Gato gestured at the mercenaries. "Kill them all. I'll pay double for the bridge builder's head." 200 men charged. Naruto sighed. He looked at the horde of mercenaries thundering down the bridge, swords drawn, crossbows loaded, voices howling, and felt something he hadn't felt in a while. Annoyance. Real, specific annoyance. The kind Jotaro Kujo used to feel when someone interrupted his meal. He stepped forward. Star Platinum. The next 15 seconds were objectively, verifiably, unarguably the worst 15 seconds in the collective lives of 200 men. Aura, 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 aura. Star Platinum moved through the mercenary army like a hurricane through a field of scarecrows. Each punch sent a man flying. Each backhand launched a cluster of bodies off the bridge and into the water. Each step forward was accompanied by a wave of invisible force that crushed weapons, crumpled armor, and sent grown men tumbling through the air like leaves in a storm. The first row went down in a half second. The second row managed to scream before they joined the first. By the third row, the mercenaries in the back were trying to turn around and run, but the bridge was narrow and the crowd behind them was pushing forward, and Star Platinum's barrage was pushing them backward, and the result was a pileup of broken men and snapped swords that would haunt everyone present for the rest of their lives. 15 seconds, 200 mercenaries. When it was over, the bridge looked like a natural disaster had landed on it. Bodies everywhere, groaning, broken, piled on top of each other. Not a single man was standing. Gato stood alone at the end of the bridge. His cane was shaking. His face was the color of old milk. His mercenary army was a carpet of bruised, unconscious, whimpering humanity spread out before him. Naruto walked toward him, step by step. Each footfall echoed on the bridge. Gato fell on his rear. "Wait! I have money. I can pay you. I can." Naruto reached him, looked down. The brim of his hat cast a shadow that swallowed the little man whole. "Good grief," Naruto said. He flicked Gato on the forehead. The shipping magnate's eyes rolled back. He slumped sideways, unconscious. One flick. That's all it took. Behind him, the entire population of Wave Country had gathered at the foot of the bridge. They'd come with pitchforks and kitchen knives, ready to make their final stand against Gato's army. Instead, they found the army already defeated, the tyrant already toppled, and a 12-year-old boy in a black coat walking back across the bridge with his hands in his pockets. Tazuna fell to his knees. Tears streamed down his weathered face. "The bridge," he said, voice breaking. "The bridge is safe." The crowd erupted. Cheers, crying, people hugging each other, children being lifted onto shoulders, the sound of a country remembering what freedom felt like. Naruto walked through it without stopping. He adjusted his coat. He pulled his hat low. "Yar, yar, days!" He kept walking. Kakashi caught up to him at the edge of the bridge. "You just single-handedly defeated an army," the Jonin said, and there was something in his voice that was equal parts respect and terror. "It was 200 regular guys with swords," Naruto said. "I've had harder mornings." Kakashi stared at him for a long moment. "What were your mornings like?" he asked. Naruto didn't answer. He was thinking about a road through the Egyptian desert, about a 100-day journey that started in a jail cell and ended on the roof of a mansion at sunset, with a vampire's body burning to ash in the dawn light. "Louder," he said eventually. And that was all. They named the bridge after him, the Great Naruto Bridge. He found out when Tazuna told him at the farewell. Naruto stared at the old man for 3 full seconds, then looked at the bridge, then looked back. "Why?" "Because you saved us," Tazuna said, tears still fresh, sake breath still potent. "You saved this whole country. You're a hero." Naruto pulled his hat down. "I just hit some guys." He walked away. Behind him, Sakura was wiping her eyes. Sasuke was staring at the ground with his new Sharingan blazing. Kakashi was reading his book, but his hand was shaking. Team 7 went home. Konoha buzzed with the mission report for weeks. An A-rank threat neutralized by a Genin team led by a 12-year-old who couldn't be explained. The Jonin commander's office was flooded with requests for information. Who was Naruto Uzumaki? What bloodline did he carry? What was the invisible force that destroyed the executioner's blade? No one had answers. The Hokage convened a private meeting with Kakashi. The Jonin described what he'd seen in meticulous detail. The blade catch, the Ora Ora rush, the army massacre. He described the sound of the punches, heavy like thunder underground, like something massive and powerful displacing air in rapid succession. He described the craters, the distance Zabuza traveled, the way Senbon needles fell to the ground in neat piles around Naruto's feet. "Kakashi," the Hokage said. "Is he a threat?" The copy ninja thought about it for a long time. "He's a threat to anything that stands in front of him," Kakashi said finally. "But he's not a threat to the village. Thus, he could be. God help us all if he ever decides to be. But right now, he's just a kid who wants to fish and read magazines and be left alone. That's what worries me," the Hokage said. "He doesn't want anything from us. A man with nothing to want is a man with nothing to lose." "With respect, sir," Kakashi said, "I don't think that's true. I've watched him on this mission. He stepped in to protect Sasuke and Sakura without being asked. He showed mercy to Haku, a kid he could have destroyed. He walked into an army to save a town that never did anything for him. He paused. He's cold on the outside. He might be the coldest person I've ever met, but there's something underneath it. Something that cares. He just doesn't show it. Maybe can't show it. Hokage puffed his pipe. Keep watching him. I don't think I could stop even if I wanted to, Kakashi said honestly. The Chunin exams came fast. Kakashi nominated Team 7. Nobody was surprised. The exams were being held in Konoha that year. Representatives from every major village would attend. It was part combat test, part political theater, part spectacle. The stands would be full. The Hokage would be watching. Foreign dignitaries would be judging the strength of the next generation. Naruto heard the news and said, "Fine." That was the full extent of his reaction. The first phase was the written exam. A room full of genin, seated at desks, given a test paper with 9 questions so difficult they were designed to be impossible without cheating. The real test was information gathering, the ability to steal answers without getting caught. Hidden Chunin were planted in the room with the correct answers. Sentinels lined the walls, watching for cheaters. If you were caught 5 times, your entire team was eliminated. The proctor was Ibiki Morino, a towering man covered in scars, the head of Konoha's torture and interrogation division. He ruled the room with fear and authority and the kind of smile that made hardened soldiers reconsider their career choices. Naruto sat down. He read the questions. He completed the paper in 12 minutes. 12 minutes, 9 questions, each one requiring advanced mathematics, code breaking, tactical analysis, and strategic theory. 12 minutes, completed, accurate, every answer correct. Then he put his head on the desk and went to sleep. Around him, the room was in chaos. Genin were panicking. Kankuro from the sand was sneaking to the bathroom to consult his puppet full of answer sheets. Sakura was solving the questions legitimately through sheer intellect. Sasuke had activated his Sharingan to copy the hand movements of the Chunin plants. Everyone was scheming, stressing, strategizing. Naruto snored. Ibiki noticed. He walked to Naruto's desk, looked at the completed paper, and felt something tighten in his gut. He finished. Ibiki muttered to his assistant, "Finished cheating? Finished the test, all 9 questions. Correct." The assistant looked at the sleeping genin. "That's not possible. Those questions were designed by the Cipher Corps." Ibiki said nothing. He walked back to the front of the room and decided to move on to the 10th question early. The 10th question was the real test, a psychological trap. Accept the question, and if you get it wrong, you're banned from the Chunin exams forever. Refuse, and your team is eliminated, but you can try again next year. The catch, there was no 10th question. The test was the choice itself. Accept meant courage. Refuse meant wisdom. Both were valid. Teams dropped out. Genin stood and left, choosing the safe path. The room thinned. Naruto stayed asleep. "Naruto Uzumaki," Ibiki barked. One eye opened under the hat. "Do you accept the 10th question?" "I already finished your test," Naruto said. "There is no 10th question. You're testing their nerve. Can I go back to sleep?" Ibiki's mouth opened, closed, opened again. The room was dead silent. Every remaining genin was staring at Naruto with expressions ranging from shock to fury to the specific flavor of existential crisis that comes from watching someone solve the unsolvable and then nap through it. Ibiki looked at the boy for a long moment. Then, against every professional instinct he had, the head of torture and interrogation laughed. "Phase 1 is over," he announced. "Everyone remaining passes." The room erupted in confused relief. Naruto went back to sleep. Phase 2, the Forest of Death, a survival exercise in a massive enclosed forest full of giant insects, predatory animals, and rival genin teams trying to kill each other over a pair of scrolls. Enter with 1 scroll. Obtain the other from an enemy team. Reach the central tower within 5 days. Team 7 entered through Gate 12. Naruto walked in with his hands in his pockets. Sakura clutched their earth scroll like it was made of gold. Sasuke was tense, Sharingan flickering, senses on high alert. The forest was alive in the worst sense of the word. Trees the size of skyscrapers, shadows that moved wrong, sounds that didn't belong to an animal that should exist. It was designed to break genin teams psychologically, physically, strategically. Naruto was not impressed. "I've been to worse jungles," he said to no one in particular. He had. A specific one in Southeast Asia in another life, with a certain red vine stand user and a baby that could predict the future. They moved through the forest. within the first hour, a team from the Rain Village tried to ambush them. "Hand over your scroll," the leader demanded, stepping out from behind a tree with 2 teammates flanking him. Naruto looked at them. "No. Then we'll take it by..." Star Platinum, 3 sounds. Like thunderclaps compressed into fists. 3 bodies launched into 3 separate trees. 3 unconscious Rain Genin dangling from branches, their scroll falling neatly into Naruto's waiting hand. He looked at it. Heaven Scroll. They now had both. "Done," he said. "Let's go to the tower." "We just started," Sakura said weakly. "And now we're finished." They reached the tower in 4 hours. They were the first team to arrive. The second team, a squad from the Sand Village led by a red-haired boy with raccoon eyes, arrived 6 hours later. The 4 days of waiting were boring. Naruto fished in a pond inside the tower's courtyard. He brought line and hooks in his coat pockets, because of course he had. But before the waiting could settle into routine, something happened in the forest that changed the trajectory of the exam, the invasion, and the entire story. Orochimaru. It happened on the second day. Naruto felt it before anyone else in the tower. A pressure, a weight in the air. Something ancient and venomous and wrong, pressing down on the forest like a hand pressing down on a throat. Star Platinum stirred behind him, not in alarm, but in recognition. It had felt killing intent before. Daio's had been golden and absolute, like staring into the sun. Kira's had been cold and empty, like a room with no exits. This one was different. This was the killing intent of something that had stopped being human a long time ago and didn't miss it. "Something's in the forest," Naruto said. Kakashi, who was supervising from the tower, looked up from his book. "What do you mean?" "Something bad, heading toward east, Sector 7. That was where Team 7's scroll competition was still ongoing. Other Genin teams were still in the forest, and now something was hunting them. But before Naruto could move, the thing in the forest found what it was looking for. It found Sasuke. Naruto arrived at the scene through the trees, moving at full sprint, Star Platinum propelling him forward with bursts of force that let him clear 50-foot gaps between branches. He felt the situation before he saw it. Sasuke was on the ground, paralyzed. His body locked in place by killing intent so thick it was almost visible. A miasma of terror that turned the air into poison and the ground into quicksand. His eyes were wide. His Sharingan was spinning uselessly, trying to process a threat so far beyond its scope that it might as well have been trying to copy a tsunami. Standing over him was a woman. At least, it looked like a woman. Long tongue, yellow eyes, a face that was wrong in ways that didn't register immediately, but settled into your subconscious like a splinter. Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sannin, a traitor to Konoha, a man who had experimented on hundreds of innocent people in pursuit of immortality, a snake who wore human faces like costumes and discarded them when they wore out. He was reaching for Sasuke's neck. His neck was extending, literally stretching, jaw unhinging, teeth bared, a curse mark ready to bite into the boy's skin and inject something toxic and irreversible. Interesting, Orochimaru purred. The last Uchiha, such beautiful eyes. I'll be taking. A hand caught the snake's extending neck, an invisible hand. Orochimaru's head snapped to a stop 6 inches from Sasuke's shoulder. His neck was compressed by an unseen grip, bulging around invisible fingers. His yellow eyes went wide, genuinely wide, with genuine surprise, for the first time in decades. Naruto stood at the edge of the clearing, hat low, coat still, one hand in his pocket. Good grief, he said, a grown man picking on kids. Orochimaru's neck retracted. He straightened his disguise, rubbed his throat and turned to face the newcomer. His yellow eyes raked over the boy, the height, the coat, the hat, the presence that filled the clearing like a physical weight. My, Orochimaru said, and his voice was silk draped over venom. The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. I've heard rumors about you, something about invisible forces and unexplainable strength. How? Delicious. Step away from him, Naruto said. There was no emotion in his voice, no anger, no threat, just a statement of fact dressed as a suggestion. And if I don't? Orochimaru smiled. Then I break you. The Sannin laughed, a genuine, delighted laugh, the sound of a predator that had just found something it thought didn't exist, a challenge. Let's test that, shall we? He summoned the snake. It burst from the ground beneath Naruto's feet, A giant python summoned beast, 40 feet long and 20 feet wide, with fangs the size of katanas. It erupted from the earth with its mouth open, jaws closing around the boy, swallowing him whole. The jaws stopped closing. The snake's mouth was being held open. Something invisible, standing inside the snake's maw, was gripping the upper jaw with one hand and the lower jaw with the other, and pushing. The snake thrashed. It constricted. It threw its entire mass into the bite. Star Platinum did not move. Then Star Platinum pulled. The snake's jaws ripped apart, torn open like wet paper. The beast let out a shriek that echoed through the entire forest as its mouth was destroyed from the inside. And then something hit it from within. A barrage of punches that turned the creature's head into a confetti of scales and blood and summoning smoke. Naruto stepped out of the dissipating summon. His coat was wet with snake bile. His hat was still on his head. He looked at Orochimaru with an expression of absolute unfiltered disgust. "That was gross," he said. Orochimaru's smile faltered. For just a moment, a fraction of a second where the mask slipped and something underneath, something old and afraid and furious, peeked through. He attacked. Full speed, Sannin speed. He crossed the clearing in the time it took light to flicker, his arm extending, the Kusanagi sword emerging from his mouth, the legendary blade of the snake Sannin capable of cutting through anything. Star Platinum caught the blade. The sword stopped. Point first, 6 inches from Naruto's face, gripped by an invisible fist. The metal groaned under the pressure. Orochimaru pushed. Star Platinum held. The Sannin's feet carved grooves in the earth as he strained forward. The sword didn't advance a millimeter. "I figured it out," Naruto said. "You can't see what's stopping you, and you're scared." Orochimaru's yellow eyes narrowed. Naruto's fist came up. His own fist, backed by Star Platinum's force, multiplied through his arm. A single uppercut aimed at the Sannin's jaw. It connected. The sound was a thundercrack. Orochimaru's head snapped back. His feet left the ground. Blood, actual blood, not the expected white snake vomit, sprayed from his mouth. His jaw dislocated. His body flipped once and hit a tree 40 feet away, hard enough to split the trunk. For one perfect frozen instant, one of the legendary Sannin of Konoha was lying in a crater of splintered wood with a broken jaw, staring at a 12-year-old boy who was adjusting his hat. Orochimaru put his jaw back into place with his own hands. A wet, cracking sound. His healing factor kicked in. The snake's regeneration, the immortality techniques, the body modifications that had kept him alive and unaging for decades. But his eyes had changed. They weren't amused anymore. They weren't curious. They were sharp, alert, focused. The eyes of a predator who had just realized it was standing in front of something that could kill it. "What are you?" Orochimaru whispered. "Someone who's going to give you a lot more than a broken jaw if you don't leave," Naruto said. "This is the last time I'm going to count to 3. He held up one finger. 1, 2 fingers. 2. Orochimaru sank into the ground. Body flicker, his entire form dissolving into the earth like water into sand, retreating, fleeing, vanishing into the forest with a speed born entirely of self-preservation. He didn't wait for 3. Naruto lowered his hand. He looked at the spot where the Sannin had disappeared. Good grief. Behind him, Sasuke was still on the ground. The paralysis from Orochimaru's killing intent was fading, replaced by a different kind of paralysis. The paralysis of a boy who had just watched someone his age chase off a legend with a single punch and a countdown. "Are you hurt?" Naruto asked without turning around. Sasuke didn't answer. He was staring at Naruto's back again. That same back, that same coat, that same wall of effortless power that made everything he'd worked for feel like a sandcastle next to a mountain. "Sasuke." "No," Sasuke managed. "I'm fine." "Then get up. We're going back to the tower." Sasuke got up. He followed Naruto through the forest. He didn't say a word for the rest of the day. The preliminary fights took place inside the tower. Too many teams had passed. The numbers needed trimming before the finals. One-on-one matches, randomly selected, fought on a raised stone arena in the center of a cavernous hall. The Hokage watched from above. Jonin Sensei lined the balconies. The air crackled with tension and testosterone and the particular brand of nervous energy that comes from knowing you're about to fight for your future in front of everyone who matters. The first few fights were standard. Sasuke won his match against a sound ninja by outsmarting a technique that manipulated air pressure. He used his Sharingan to read the attack pattern, closed the distance, and finished it with a clean combination. Efficient. Impressive. The crowd murmured approval. Then the board displayed two names, Naruto Uzumaki versus Kiba Inuzuka. Kiba jumped down to the arena floor with his dog on his head and a grin on his face. He was confident. Loud. The kind of fighter who ran his mouth before his brain had time to catch up. Finally, Kiba shouted, pumping his fist. I've been waiting for this. Everyone talks about you like you're some kind of monster, but I've seen you in class. Sleeping, reading magazines, doing nothing. You're all hype, Naruto. Naruto walked down to the arena floor. Each step echoed. The room went still. I'm gonna wipe that bored look right off your face. Kiba continued, crouching into his clan's signature combat stance. Akamaru barked in agreement. Yakamashi, Naruto said. You and the dog. Beast mimicry, man-beast clone. Kiba shouted, and Akamaru transformed into a copy of him. Two Kibas, identical, both feral, both fast, both surging forward with claws out. Fang over fang, they spun. Twin drilling spirals of teeth and claws, rotating at insane speed, converging on Naruto from both sides. The attack was vicious. It tore grooves in the stone floor. It displaced air hard enough to rustle the coats of people standing on the balcony. Star Platinum caught them both. One spinning body in each hand held in place, rotating futilely against invisible grips like wheels stuck in mud. Kiba's eyes went wide. He was spinning at full speed and going absolutely nowhere, held by something he couldn't see. Naruto looked at the left one, then the right one. Which one's the dog? He asked. Ore. One punch each. Both Kibas launched in opposite directions. Kiba hit the far wall and slid down in a heap. Akamaru poofed back into puppy form and landed on Kiba's head, whimpering, "Fight over." 3 seconds. The examiner stared at the arena, then at Naruto, then at Kiba's crumpled form against the wall. He raised his hand. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. The room was silent for a solid 5 seconds. Then the whispering started, a tidal wave of muttering that rolled through the crowd of Jinin and Jonin and spectators like a shockwave of its own. Did you see? I didn't see anything. That's the problem. He just caught them mid-spin. How? How do you catch a rotating body moving at that speed? Up on the balcony, Might Guy, the village's premier taijutsu master, a man who measured combat speed in fractions of light, turned to Kakashi with an expression that could only be described as professionally shaken. Kakashi, my eternal rival, what was that? I don't know, Kakashi said honestly, and I'm his sensei. That boy's speed, his reflexes, his power output. Kakashi, those numbers don't match any taijutsu style I've ever cataloged, and I've cataloged them all. I know. Is he using chakra enhancement? No. Gates? No. Bloodline? No. Then what? I don't know, guy. The green beast of Konoha looked at Naruto, who was already walking back up the stairs, hands in pockets, hat low, and for the first time in his life, felt that the word genius was insufficient. Other fights happened. They were fine. But the crowd was still thinking about what they'd seen. Rock Lee fought Gaara, a devastating match that ended with Lee's body broken and Gaara's sand defense barely holding. It was brutal and emotional, and every person in the room felt something crack in their chest when Lee refused to fall even after his bones gave out. Naruto watched from the balcony. His expression didn't change. But when Lee finally collapsed and the medical team rushed in, Naruto's hand tightened on the railing. Just once. Just briefly. Guy, who saw it, felt something tighten in his own chest for entirely different reasons. The prelims ended. The bracket was set. The finals would take place in 1 month, in the stadium, in front of the entire village and visiting dignitaries. The main event, Naruto Uzumaki versus Neji Hyuga. The month of training was unremarkable for Naruto. He didn't train in any conventional sense. He fished. He read. He did his morning exercises. Push-ups, sit-ups, weight work, the kind of maintenance routine that kept a body that was already monstrous from getting rusty. Kakashi tried to teach him techniques. Naruto listened politely, then declined. I don't use ninjutsu, he said. Naruto, the finals will be broadcast. Important people will be watching. If you could at least show some, I don't use ninjutsu. But, sensei. Naruto looked at him, both eyes visible. No hat shadow, the full weight of that blue-eyed stare. I fought gods with what I have. A tournament isn't going to change what I need. Kakashi opened his mouth. closed it, opened it again. You said gods, plural. Yar days, Naruto said and put his hat back on. The conversation was over. Jiraiya found him on the third day. The Toad Sage, white-haired, mountain-sized, loud in every sense of the word, had come to Konoha for the exams. He'd heard the rumors. Minato's son, impossibly strong, invisible attacks, a presence that made Jonin sweat. He found Naruto fishing at a pond in the training grounds. He approached with all the subtlety of a marching band. So you're the kid? Jiraiya boomed, hands on his hips, grinning wide. Naruto Uzumaki, son of the fourth Hokage, Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. And from what I hear, the strongest genin this village has produced since your old man. Naruto looked at him. Who are you? Jiraiya's grin widened. He struck a pose, 1 foot on a rock, arms spread wide, hair flowing in a breeze that conveniently appeared from nowhere. I am the great Toad Sage Jiraiya, one of the legendary Sannin, author of the critically acclaimed Ika Icha series. The gallant Jiraiya feared a cross. I don't care. Jiraiya's pose collapsed. His arms fell to his sides, his mouth hung open. You don't care? I'm fishing. But I'm a Sannin. I knew your father. That's nice. You're scaring the fish. Jiraiya stared at the boy. Then he laughed. A deep, genuine, belly-shaking laugh that scattered birds from nearby trees. Oh, kid, Jiraiya said, wiping a tear from his eye. You're exactly like him. Minato had the same look, the same I already know everything and I'm bored thing. Drove everyone crazy. Naruto didn't respond. He caught a fish, a big one. He held it up, examined it, then put it back. I came to offer you training, Jiraiya said, sitting down on the grass beside him. For the finals, I can teach you things no one else in this village can. Sage mode, summoning contracts, Rasengan, your father's signature technique. I don't need techniques. Everyone needs. I don't need techniques. He said it with a finality that closed the conversation like a door slamming shut. Jiraiya was quiet for a long time. He studied the boy. The hat, the coat, the golden chain. The way he held the fishing rod, experienced, patient, with the steady hands of someone who had done this for years. The way his eyes, blue, fierce, ancient, watched the water with something that might have been peace. You're an old soul, Jiraiya said softly. Aren't you? Naruto's hand tightened on the rod. For a fraction of a second, his expression shifted. Something flickered behind the ice. A flash of warmth, or maybe sorrow, or maybe just the echo of a life lived and lost and lived again. Then it was gone. Something like that, Naruto said. Jiraiya stayed. He fished beside the boy in silence. They didn't speak for 2 hours. It was the most peaceful afternoon either of them had spent in a long time. The Chunin exam finals. The stadium was packed, every seat filled. Konoha citizens in the stands, waving flags, eating vendor food. Foreign dignitaries in the VIP box. The Hokage seated beside the Kazekage, a masked figure with cold eyes and a presence that Naruto immediately distrusted from the moment he walked onto the arena floor. The atmosphere was electric. This was the event of the year, the showcase of young talent that determined alliances, reputations, and the future of entire villages. The first match was called Naruto Uzumaki versus Neji Hyuga. The stadium went wild. Naruto's reputation had spread. The Mizuki incident, the land of waves, the Chunin exam prelims. Every ninja in the village had heard some version of the story, each one more exaggerated than the last. But the truth, in this case, was more extreme than any exaggeration. He walked to the center of the arena. Hat low, coat flowing, hands in pockets. 6'5" at 12 years old, moving with the unhurried confidence of a man who had never once needed to rush. Neji Hyuga was already waiting. The Hyuga prodigy, long hair, pale eyes, a face carved from stone and bitterness. He stood with his arms crossed and his Byakugan activated, veins pulsing around his temples. He had studied Naruto's previous matches. He had seen the speed, the power, the invisible force. He was confident anyway, because Neji Hyuga believed in destiny, and destiny had told him since childhood that he was meant for greatness. Before we begin, Neji said, his voice carrying across the silent arena, I want you to know that this fight is already decided. Fate determines the outcome of every battle. You were born a loser and a failure. The village's hatred, the demon inside you, your parentage, all of it was written before you were born. You cannot escape it. You cannot overcome it. Destiny. Yar days. Naruto interrupted him mid-sentence. The words cut through Neji's speech like a knife through fog. "You're giving me a headache." Neji's eye twitched. "Excuse me? Are you done talking? Because I didn't come here for a lecture." The crowd murmured. A few people laughed. In the stands, Ino grabbed Sakura's arm and squeezed. Hinata pressed her hands together. Tenten gripped the railing. Neji's face hardened. "You don't take this seriously. Fine, I'll show you why fate cannot be defied." The examiner raised his hand. First match of the finals. Naruto Uzumaki versus Neji Hyuga. "Begin." Neji moved instantly. He was fast. Hyuga trained, precise, his gentle fist style striking at chakra points with the accuracy of a surgeon's scalpel. His Byakugan saw everything. The full 360-degree field of vision, every tenketsu in Naruto's body lit up like a roadmap. He struck. 2 fingers aimed at the tenketsu on Naruto's right arm, a textbook gentle fist opening, designed to shut down the chakra flow and cripple the limb. His fingers stopped. They hit something. Something invisible. Something solid. Something that felt like trying to poke through a steel wall with a chopstick. His fingertips went numb on impact. Neji's Byakugan widened. He couldn't see what had blocked him. His bloodline saw chakra, every form, every flow, every network. What was in front of him was none of those things. It was a blank space, a void where his perception said nothing existed, but his fingers said something very much did. He attacked again. Faster. 8 trigrams, 32 palms. A barrage of strikes aimed at every major tenketsu point, accelerating with each rotation. His hands were a blur. Each strike was lethal to a normal opponent's chakra system. Every single one stopped against the same invisible wall. 32 strikes, 0 connections. Neji stumbled backward, hands aching, and for the first time, something flickered in his pale eyes that wasn't confidence. "What is this?" he demanded. "What are you using? My Byakugan sees everything. There's nothing there." "Exactly," Naruto said. Neji snarled. He planted his feet. His chakra surged, a massive spike that bent the air around him, pulling dust and debris into a vortex. 8 trigrams, revolving heaven, the rotation, the Hyuga's ultimate defense, a spinning dome of expelled chakra that deflected everything. Weapons bounced off it. Jutsu dissipated against it. It was considered impenetrable by every tactical analysis in Konoha's archives. Neji spun. The dome of chakra erupted around him, a hemisphere of blue energy, whirling, humming, vibrating with enough force to repel a charging bull. Naruto walked into it. He walked into the rotation. His coat whipped in the chakra wind. His hat pressed down against his head. His feet moved forward, one step at a time, against the force of a technique that was supposed to stop everything. Star Platinum's fists were bracing against the rotating chakra, absorbing the force, redirecting it, pushing through it like a man walking through a strong wind. The dome crackled around Naruto's body. Energy sparked against something invisible. The sound was ear-splitting. Neji, inside the dome, watched in horror as Naruto walked through his absolute defense like it was a curtain. He was inside the rotation, face to face with Neji, inside the spinning dome, where nothing was supposed to be able to reach. Star Platinum. One hand grabbed Neji by the collar. Invisible, irresistible, inescapable. The rotation collapsed. The dome flickered and died. Neji hung in the air, lifted by his collar, feet off the ground, pale eyes wider than they had ever been. Naruto looked at him. "Your destiny is whatever I just punched into the ground." He slammed Neji down. Star Platinum drove the Hyuga prodigy into the arena floor with a force that sent a web of cracks radiating outward across the entire stone surface. The impact sent a shockwave through the stadium that rattled the stands and made vendors drop their food. Dust erupted in a cloud that blotted out the arena for 3 full seconds. When it cleared, Neji was in a crater, out cold. His Byakugan was deactivated. His body was intact. Naruto had held back enough to avoid permanent damage, but he was done. Completely and utterly done. Naruto stood over the crater. His coat settled. His hat was in place. His hands went back into his pockets. The stadium was silent. 10,000 people, and not a single sound. Not a whisper. Not a breath. Then the examiner raised his hand. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. The stadium exploded. It wasn't just cheering. It was a detonation of sound. People were on their feet. Civilians were screaming. Ninja were pounding the railings. In the VIP box, the dignitaries were on their feet with expressions of blank astonishment. In the stands, Sakura was crying and laughing at the same time. Ino was screaming something incoherent. Hinata had fainted, been caught by Kiba, and then fainted again when Kiba accidentally woke her up. Kakashi, in the Jonin section, had his book closed for the first time since anyone could remember. His one visible eye was locked on the arena floor. Jiraiya, standing at the top of the stadium, was grinning so wide his face might split. "That's Minato's kid, all right," he said to nobody. "That's Minato's kid and then some." Dash, the third Hokage, sat in his chair and watched the boy walk off the arena floor. His pipe had gone out. He didn't notice. Beside him, the Kazekage leaned forward. Behind the mask, yellow eyes gleamed. "Interesting," the Kazekage murmured. Orochimaru recognized the boy. His jaw ached in memory. The invasion happened in the gap between the finals. Sand and Sound Ninja moved on a hidden signal. The Kazekage, Orochimaru in disguise, took the Hokage hostage on the rooftop, trapped inside a barrier created by his elite guards. Through the streets of Konoha, enemy forces poured in through breached walls and broken gates. A massive snake summon, the size of a mountain, crashed through the eastern wall and began leveling buildings. The stadium became a battlefield. Ninja clashed in the stands. Genjutsu knocked out civilians. Sand Ninja engaged Leaf Jonin in the aisles. Naruto was in the center of it. On the arena floor, standing in the crater he'd made when he beat Neji, surrounded by chaos, untouched, an enemy team dropped from the stands. 3 Sound Ninja, Chunin level, armed and coordinated, targeting the boy they'd been told was a high-priority elimination target. "Kill the blonde one!" Orochimaru-sama's orders. They attacked from 3 sides. Naruto didn't look at them. "Ora, ora, 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 ora!" 3 bodies, 3 directions, 3 walls. The Sound Ninja team was a memory. Before they hit the ground, more came. Naruto waded through them. Not with anger, with efficiency. Star Platinum's fists cleared a path through the invasion like a plow through snow. Each punch sent an enemy flying. Each step forward ended a fight that hadn't started yet. He reached the eastern wall. The giant snake summoned. A monstrous creature of scales and fangs, 400 feet long, was pressing its body against the wall, trying to widen the breach. Buildings crumbled. People screamed. Leaf Ninja threw everything they had at the creature and bounced off its scales like rain off a roof. Naruto looked up at the snake. The snake looked down at him. "Aura!" Star Platinum delivered a single punch to the snake's skull. The impact sent a shockwave through the creature's body that rippled its scales from head to tail. The snake's eyes went blank. Its body went limp. 400 feet of legendary summon creature collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut, crushing 3 buildings and a market stall on the way down, and vanished in a cloud of summoning smoke so large it blotted out the sun. 1 punch. A Leaf Chunin standing on a nearby rooftop dropped to his knees and started praying. Naruto looked at the breach in the wall. Enemy ninja were pouring through. Star Platinum. He stood in the breach. 1 boy. 1 stand. 1 gap in the wall, 20 feet wide. Nobody got through. For 40 minutes, while the invasion raged across the rest of the village, while the Hokage battled Orochimaru on the rooftop, and the Sans Jinchuriki rampaged near the eastern forest, Naruto Uzumaki held the eastern wall alone. Every enemy that charged the breach met Star Platinum. Every sword, every jutsu, every squad formation stopped, broken, scattered. The pile of unconscious bodies on both sides of the wall grew into a small hill. When the invasion finally ended, when Orochimaru fled and the Sand forces surrendered and the barrier on the rooftop fell, the eastern wall was still standing, because Naruto Uzumaki had decided it would be. The aftermath was grim. The 3rd Hokage was dead. He had given his life to seal Orochimaru's arms using the Reaper Death Seal, sacrificing himself to protect the village in its darkest hour. The funeral was held 3 days later in the rain, under a gray sky that seemed to understand the occasion. Naruto attended. He stood at the back of the crowd, hat pulled low, coat wet. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He watched the ceremony with those ancient blue eyes and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. The old man had been kind to him. In a village that feared him and ignored him and whispered demon behind his back, the 3rd Hokage had been the one person who consistently tried. He'd visited the apartment. He'd asked about school. He'd looked at Naruto with concern and warmth and the baffled love of a grandfather who couldn't understand his grandson but refused to stop trying. And now he was gone. Naruto's hand tightened at his side. Star Platinum stirred behind him, not in anger, but in something that felt like grief. A stand reflecting its user's heart. "Yar yar days," Naruto murmured. It was the saddest he'd ever said those words. He stayed at the memorial stone after everyone left. He stood in the rain, staring at the names carved in black stone, and thought about all the people he'd lost across 2 lives. Kakyoin, Avdol, Iggy. His grandfather, the first Jotaros, Joseph Joestar, the loudest, most ridiculous, most annoyingly alive man who had ever lived. And now the third Hokage, people kept dying for him, around him, because of him. That was the cost of being who he was. The people near him paid prices he couldn't cover. He touched the stone, once briefly. "Thank you," he said, "for trying." Then he pulled his hat down and walked away through the rain. The weeks after the invasion were tense. Konoha was wounded. Its leader was gone. Its walls were breached. Its enemies were circling. And Sasuke Uchiha was breaking. The Chunin exams had done something to him. Watching Naruto dismantle Neji, watching him hold the Eastern Wall, watching him exist in a category of power so far above anything Sasuke could reach that it felt less like a gap and more like a gulf, an ocean between where Sasuke stood and where Naruto breathed. Orochimaru's curse mark burned on his neck. It whispered to him at night. Power, revenge, a path to the strength he needed to kill his brother, and underneath it all, like acid eating through metal, the thought that ate him alive: I will never catch him. I will train every day of my life, and I will never be what Naruto Uzumaki already is. The Sound Four came for him at night. 4 of Orochimaru's elite guards, carrying a barrel and a promise: come with us, and Lord Orochimaru will give you power beyond anything Konoha can offer. Sasuke went. He packed nothing. He looked at his headband on the nightstand. He thought about the team, about Sakura, who loved him in a way he didn't deserve, about Kakashi, who had tried to be the father he lost, about Naruto, who had never once looked at him like a rival, because, to Naruto, Sasuke had never been worth rivaling. That was the thought that pushed him out the door. He left the village at midnight, and by dawn, the alarm was raised. Shikamaru organized a retrieval squad. Naruto wasn't part of the original team. He'd been on a separate assignment at the border. By the time word reached him, the squad had already left and was already losing. The Sound Four were strong. Each one carried Orochimaru's curse mark at its second stage, transformations that pushed their bodies beyond human limits. The Leaf Genin were outmatched. Choji was down. Neji was bleeding. Kiba was running on fumes. Shikamaru's strategies were running out. Naruto arrived at the trail's midpoint and kept going. He moved fast. Star Platinum propelled him through the trees at a speed that left branches swaying and leaves stripped in his wake. He didn't stop to help the others. He had a single destination, the Valley of the End. He found Sasuke at the waterfall. The 2 statues, Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha, founders and destroyers, standing on opposite sides of the river with their stone hands forever locked in combat, loomed above the valley. The waterfall roared between them, a curtain of white water that had been falling since the first days of the village. The river below churned and frothed and carried the echoes of old wars in its current. Sasuke stood on the head of Madara's statue. He had changed. The curse mark had spread across his body, black flame patterns crawling over his skin like living ink. His eyes were red with the Sharingan, spinning with 2 tomoe each, burning with a fury that had been building since the day he first saw Naruto's back and realized he could never catch it. As Naruto watched, the curse mark pulsed, shifted, transformed. Sasuke screamed. Wings burst from his back, gray, leathery, stretching wide. His skin faded to a sickly gray. His hair grew long and wild. His sclera turned black, his irises turned gold, and the boy that remained was buried under a monster that Orochimaru's power had built, Curse Mark Stage 2. Sasuke looked down at Naruto with yellow eyes full of hate and heartbreak, and the specific kind of rage that only exists between people who could have been friends. "Naruto!" His voice was distorted. Deeper. Wrong. Naruto stood on the water below, hat low, coat heavy with spray from the waterfall. He looked up at the boy on the statue and felt something that might have been sadness if he still remembered how to be sad. "Come back, Sasuke!" "No!" Sasuke launched from the statue. Wings spread. Black lightning gathered in his hand. A Chidori corrupted by the curse mark's power, screaming with a sound like tearing metal, crackling with energy that warped the air around it. "I will kill you, Naruto! I'll prove I'm stronger, You won't," Naruto said. Sasuke dove. Full speed. Curse mark speed. The Chidori in his hand was aimed at Naruto's heart. His face was twisted in agony and rage and 1,000 feelings he'd never learned to name. He was moving faster than he'd ever moved. Faster than any genin should be able to move, fueled by rage and hate and the desperate need to prove that his life meant something, that his pain had a purpose, that the gap could be closed if he just hit hard enough. He screamed as he fell. A wordless howl that echoed off the canyon walls and mixed with the roar of the waterfall. Naruto watched him come, and then he said it. Star Platinum, the world. Time stopped. The world held its breath. Colors inverted. The sky turned from gray to white. The waterfall froze in place. Every drop of water, every ripple, every cascade, locked in mid-fall like a photograph of a moment that would never complete. The mist from the falls hung in the air like suspended dust. The river's surface became glass. The spray that had been reaching for Naruto's coat stopped moving. Sasuke froze. 3 feet from Naruto's face, his hand outstretched, the black Chidori in his palm locked in mid-scream, lightning suspended in jagged lines that went nowhere. His wings were spread wide, caught mid-flap. His mouth was open, his eyes were wide. His expression, rage, pain, loss, was carved into his face like a monument to everything that had gone wrong. He was a statue, a perfect, frozen statue of fury and heartbreak, hanging in stopped time. And Naruto was the only thing moving in the world. He exhaled. The sound of his breath was the only sound that existed. No waterfall, no thunder, no screaming. Just one breath, in a world where everything else had forgotten how. He walked forward. His boots rippled the frozen water beneath his feet, the only disruption in a surface that was otherwise a perfect mirror of a stopped sky. He looked at Sasuke, really looked at him, for the first time in a long time. The curse mark, the wings, the black eyes. Underneath it all, a boy. A boy who'd lost everything and been told that hatred was the only thing worth keeping. A boy who'd been manipulated by a snake and abandoned by a village and broken by a brother and was currently trying to kill the one person who had never once treated him as anything other than what he was. A kid who needed help and was too proud to ask for it. Naruto reached up and adjusted his hat. "You owe a lot of people an apology, Sasuke," he said to the frozen boy. "But I don't have time to teach you manners." He clenched his fist. Star Platinum manifested in full, a towering figure of violet and gold, burning with an aura that warped the stopped air around it. Its fists were raised. Its eyes were blazing. Its presence filled the canyon like a second waterfall, invisible and overwhelming. Aura, 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 aura. The barrage was apocalyptic. Star Platinum's fists fell on Sasuke's suspended body like a hailstorm made of wrecking balls. Each punch landed with a force that compressed the stopped air around the impact point, creating visible distortions, ripples in frozen time, cracks in the fabric of the moment. The curse mark wings tore apart under the assault, ripping to shreds of gray skin and dissolving into nothing. The black Chidori in Sasuke's hand flickered, sputtered, and died, the lightning scattering like startled birds. Each punch echoed in the frozen world, a sound that shouldn't exist in stopped time, the sound of impact, of force, of consequence. Every hit was a full force, zero mercy, Star Platinum special, and there were hundreds of them. Hundreds of punches, delivered in a span of stop time that lasted exactly 5 seconds and felt like an eternity. The final punch, the ore that was louder than all the rest, connected with the center of Sasuke's chest. Star Platinum's fist drove forward with everything it had, and the force rippled outward through Sasuke's suspended body like a stone dropped in a pond. Naruto exhaled. Time resumes. The world snapped back. Sound returned. The waterfall roared. The mist swirled. The sky regained its color. And Sasuke Uchiha, who had been frozen 3 feet from Naruto's face with a killing blow aimed at his heart, was blasted backward like a cannonball. He hit the canyon wall. The impact was biblical in its scope. Wait, no. The impact was catastrophic. The entire cliff face cracked. A Sasuke-shaped indent formed in the stone, surrounded by a web of fractures that spiderwebbed outward for 50 feet in every direction. Rocks broke free and fell into the river. The sound of the impact rolled down the canyon like thunder, mixing with the roar of the falls. Sasuke's curse mark receded. The wings dissolved. The black bled out of his eyes. The gray faded from his skin. He was a boy again. Just a boy, broken, beaten, sliding down the cliff face, landing in the shallow water at its base. He lay face down, unconscious, still breathing. The river carried small waves past his body. The waterfall resumed its eternal fall. The statues of Hashirama and Madara looked down at the battlefield with their stone faces and said nothing, because stone faces never do. Naruto stood on the water. His coat was soaked. His hat was dripping. Star Platinum faded behind him, its job done, its fists unclenching for the first time since the fight began. He walked across the water. He reached down. He grabbed Sasuke by the back of his shirt and lifted him out of the river, gently, with more care than anyone would have expected from the boy who had just delivered the most devastating beatdown in the history of the Valley of the End. He slung Sasuke over his shoulder. The unconscious boy's head lolled against his back. Water dripped from both of them. Naruto looked at the battlefield. The cracked canyon wall, the displaced river, the silence where Sasuke's screaming had been. He adjusted his coat, he pulled his hat low. Yar days! What a pain! He turned and walked toward Konoha. Each step on the water was steady. Each footfall was certain. He carried his unconscious rival on his shoulder like he weighed nothing. Because, to Naruto, he didn't. The waterfall fell behind them. The canyon faded into distance. The statues watched them go. He walked for hours through the forest, past the wreckage of other fights, craters, broken trees, the aftermath of battles that the retrieval squad had fought and barely survived. He passed Lee, who had arrived late as backup and was carrying a wounded Kiba on his back. Lee saw Naruto, saw Sasuke's unconscious body over his shoulder, and stopped. Naruto-kun. Naruto kept walking. Lee watched him pass. The coat, the hat, the boy slung over his shoulder like a sack of grain. The absolute bone-deep wariness in Naruto's stride that wasn't physical. His body was fine. His body was always fine, but lived somewhere deeper, in a place that muscles couldn't reach. You did it? Lee said, almost to himself. Naruto didn't answer. He reached the village gates at sunset. Kakashi was waiting. Sakura was waiting. Shikamaru, bandaged and exhausted, was waiting. Tsunade, the new 5th Hokage, appointed in the weeks after the third's death, a blonde woman with superhuman strength and a temper to match, was waiting. Naruto walked through the gates. He walked up to Tsunade. He lowered Sasuke off his shoulder and laid him on the ground at her feet. He's alive, Naruto said. Fix him. Tsunade looked at the unconscious Uchiha, then at Naruto, then at the look in his eyes. A look she recognized because she'd worn it herself a long time ago. The look of someone who was tired. Not physically, just tired. You brought him back, she said. I said I would. Sakura was on her knees next to Sasuke, healing chakra already glowing in her hands, tears streaming down her face. Kakashi stood behind them, one hand on Sakura's shoulder, his visible eye fixed on Naruto with an expression that said everything his mouth couldn't. Shikamaru leaned against the gate wall, arms crossed, watching Naruto with the expression of someone who was mentally recalculating every assessment he'd ever made of the blonde. What happened at the valley? Shikamaru asked. Naruto put his hands in his pockets. I hit him. You hit him. A lot. Shikamaru stared at him, then sighed. Troublesome. Naruto almost smiled. Almost. He walked home through the village. The sun was setting over the Hokage monument, 4 faces, soon to be 5, carved into the mountainside like the memories of giants. The village was still healing from the invasion. Scaffolding climbed the damaged buildings. Workers shouted across rooftops. The smell of fresh wood and wet paint mixed with the evening air. People watched him pass. They always watched him, but the quality of the watching had changed. It wasn't fear anymore, or rather, it wasn't just fear. There was something else in their eyes now. Respect, awe, gratitude maybe. The man at the ramen stand bowed when Naruto walked past. The woman at the flower shop nodded. A group of academy students pointed and whispered with the starstruck reverence of children watching a hero walk by. Naruto didn't acknowledge any of it. He walked to his apartment. He unlocked the door. He stepped inside. The apartment was small, sparse. A bed, a desk, a kitchenette, fishing rods in the corner, stacks of marine biology magazines on the floor, a window that looked out over the village, the mountain, the sky turning orange and purple and every color in between. He took off his hat. He hung his coat on the hook by the door. He sat on his bed. Star Platinum materialized behind him. Massive, violet, golden-eyed. It sat behind its user, a silent guardian, a fighting spirit, a piece of a soul that had crossed death and reincarnation and the boundaries between worlds to stay at his side. Naruto looked at the ceiling. He thought about Jotaro Kujo's final moments. The white light, the feeling of letting go, the understanding that the fight was over, not because he lost, but because the body had run out of road, and even the strongest stand in the world couldn't punch its way through time itself. Except now, apparently, it could. He'd stopped time today, at the Valley of the End. 5 seconds of frozen reality, bending to his will, breaking at his command. Star Platinum, the world, the ultimate technique, born from a dead vampire's power, inherited through combat, carried across lifetimes. He'd stopped time to save a boy who wanted to kill him. "Yer yar days," he said to the empty room. Star Platinum's fingers uncurled behind him. It placed one massive, invisible hand on his back, a gesture that no one in the world could see or feel or understand. Naruto closed his eyes. He thought about the road ahead. Orochimaru was still out there. Jaw healed, grudge burning, plans within plans. Akatsuki was moving in the shadows. Jiraiya had told him about them before the finals, about the organization of S-rank criminals hunting the tailed beasts, about the red clouds and the ringing eyes and the apocalyptic ambitions of men who wanted to reshape the world. And Sasuke. Sasuke would wake up. Sasuke would hate him more than ever. Sasuke would look at the gap between them and see an ocean where there should have been a bridge. And Naruto knew, the way he'd always known things, in both lives, that this wasn't over. The Valley of the End was a pause, not a period. The story was far from finished. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Tonight, Naruto Uzumaki, the reincarnation of Jotaro Kujo, the bearer of Star Platinum, the boy who stopped time at a waterfall and called it a pain, was going to sit in his apartment and look at the sunset and do absolutely nothing. He'd earned it. Outside, the village hummed with life. Children played in the streets. Ninja leaped across rooftops. Sakura was at the hospital, watching over Sasuke's unconscious form. Kakashi was at the memorial stone, talking to ghosts. Jiraiya was on a rooftop, writing notes, planning for a future he could feel pressing down on the horizon like a storm. And somewhere, in a hidden base underground, a snake with golden eyes and a bruised jaw was looking at a map of the world and thinking about the boy who had punched him in the face and counted to 2. The world was moving. The pieces were in play. The game was bigger than any single village or any single war. And at the center of it, at the eye of every storm, at the heart of every conflict, at the point where every line converged, there was a 12-year-old boy in a black coat, sitting on his bed, reading a magazine about dolphins. He turned a page. Star Platinum hovered behind him like a second shadow, silent, vigilant, ready. The sunset poured through the window and turned the room gold. Naruto Uzumaki adjusted his reading position, propped a pillow behind his head, and muttered the same words he'd been muttering across 2 lifetimes, 2 worlds, and more fights than any human should ever have to endure. Yar yar days. The knock on his door came 3 days later. Naruto was doing push-ups, his morning set 500, bare-knuckled on the wooden floor, when the knock rattled the hinges. Not a polite knock, not an ambu knock, the knock of a man who had never once in his life approached anything quietly and saw no reason to start now. He opened the door. Jiraiya stood in the hallway, arms folded, white hair spilling over his shoulders like an avalanche that had given up halfway down a mountain. He was grinning, the kind of grin that preceded either a terrible idea or an incredible one, and with Jiraiya, the line between those two things was a smudge at best. "Pack your bags, kid," Jiraiya said. "We're leaving Konoha." Naruto looked at him. "Why?" "Training trip. 2.5 years. Open road. Just you and me and whatever poor bastards are dumb enough to cross our path." He leaned against the doorframe. "The world's getting dangerous. Akatsuki is making moves. They're hunting Jinchuriki. You know what that means. You need to be ready." "I am ready." You're ready for this village. I'm talking about what's coming next. The stuff that makes Orochimaru look like a warm-up. Naruto stared at him for 5 full seconds. Then he turned, grabbed his hat off the hook, put on his coat, picked up 3 fishing magazines and walked out the door. That's it? Jiraiya blinked. You don't need to pack? I'm packed. You have 3 magazines and the clothes on your back. I'm packed. Jiraiya laughed. Big, thus rolling laugh that could be heard 3 blocks away. You're exactly like your old man. Let's go. They left Konoha at dawn. No ceremony. No goodbye crowd. Naruto walked through the gates with his hands in his pockets and didn't look back. Sakura saw them from the hospital window and pressed her hand against the glass. Kakashi, sitting on the memorial stone with his book, felt the shift in the air as Naruto's presence left the village and said nothing. Hinata, who had somehow learned the exact time of departure through a network of information gathering that would have impressed the Anbu, stood behind a utility pole near the main road and watched Naruto's back disappear into the morning light. She didn't faint. She held it together. She watched until the coat was a black speck on the horizon, and then she cried, and then she fainted. And Kiba caught her because Kiba always caught her and was starting to wonder if this was going to be a permanent part of his life. The road was long, 2.5 years, 30 months, 900 days of open country, foreign towns, mountain passes, and coastlines that stretched from the borders of the Land of Fire to places that didn't appear on most maps. Jiraiya had a plan. He always had a plan. The plan was to train Naruto, to unlock the Nine-Tails chakra, to teach Sage Mode, to pass down the Rasengan and the Toad summoning contract, and everything else in the Toad Sage's considerable arsenal. The plan lasted about 4 days. On the first day, Jiraiya attempted to teach Naruto the Rasengan. He demonstrated the technique, a spinning ball of compressed chakra in the palm, Minato's legacy, a technique that had taken the 4th Hokage 3 years to develop. The key is rotation, Jiraiya explained, holding the swirling sphere. You take your chakra and I told you, I don't use chakra techniques. Everyone uses chakra, even you. You have the largest reserves I've ever sensed in a human being. Just because you don't use them doesn't mean you can't. I can. I choose not to. It's unnecessary. How can the 4th Hokage's legacy technique be unnecessary? Naruto looked at the Rasengan in Jiraiya's hand. Then he held up his own palm. The air above it warped. Something invisible compressed the space, creating a sphere of displaced atmosphere that hummed with a pressure that made Jiraiya's ears pop. It wasn't chakra. It was pure force, compressed into a ball by Star Platinum's fists, moving in a rotation so fast they were invisible even to Jiraiya's trained eyes. The sphere cracked the ground beneath Naruto's hand from sheer proximity. Naruto closed his fist. The pressure vanished. Unnecessary, he repeated. Jiraiya stared at the cracked ground, then at the boy, then at the ground again. Well, the Toad Sage said, that's something. On the second day, Jiraiya tried the Toad summoning contract. He unrolled the massive scroll, presented the signing requirements, explained the history. Your father signed this. I signed this. It connects you to Mount Myoboku and the most powerful summoning creatures in the world. Naruto read the scroll. He considered it for a long time, longer than he'd considered anything Jiraiya had shown him. Summoning was different. It wasn't a technique. It was a connection, a bond between a person and a living thing. He understood bonds. He signed it, his name in terrible handwriting, his blood on the paper, the contract sealed. He never once summoned a toad in combat, but he'd signed it. That meant something to Jiraiya, even if neither of them said so. On the third day, Jiraiya tried Sage Mode. He explained the concept. Natural energy, drawn from the world itself, absorbed into the body, fused with chakra to create something greater than the sum of its parts. The toads of Mount Myoboku had mastered it. A handful of humans in history had achieved it. Naruto sat still for 2 hours. He felt the natural energy. He felt it pressing against his skin, trying to enter, trying to merge. Star Platinum rejected it. The stand didn't react to natural energy the way a chakra network did. It existed outside the framework. Natural energy tried to enter Naruto's body and bounced off the stand's aura like rain off a steel roof. Star Platinum was already complete. It didn't need supplementation. It didn't allow contamination. It was what it was, a manifestation of the soul, pure and absolute. and it would not be diluted by the energy of a world it had never been born into. "It's not working," Jiraiya observed, watching Naruto's face remain unchanged after 2 hours of attempted meditation. "My body rejects it. Whatever I have inside me, it doesn't mix with your natural energy. That shouldn't be possible. A lot of things about me shouldn't be possible." On the 4th day, Jiraiya gave up trying to teach and started trying to understand. This became the pattern of the next 2.5 years. Jiraiya watched. He documented. He filled notebooks with observations, the range of the invisible force, the speed of the strikes, the way the air warped when Star Platinum manifested. He couldn't see the stand, but he could feel it. He learned to read the signs, the displaced air, the pressure change, the way Naruto's shadow seemed to have a second shadow behind it when the light hit right. He asked questions. Naruto answered some of them. How far can it reach? 2 meters in every direction. After that, the power drops. Can it be hurt? If it's hurt, I'm hurt. If I'm hurt, it's hurt. We're the same thing. What's the upper limit of its strength? Naruto looked at a mountain. He looked at it for a long time. I haven't found one. Jiraiya wrote that down with a hand that trembled slightly. The nights were spent around campfires in foreign countries, in roadside inns, on cliff tops overlooking oceans that stretched to the horizon. Jiraiya drank sake and told stories about Minato and Kushina, stories that Naruto listened to with his hat pulled low and his eyes hidden, giving away nothing. But he listened. Every word. Your mother, Jiraiya said one night, staring into the fire, was the loudest woman I ever met. She'd hit your father in the middle of Hokage meetings, and he'd just smile like it was the best thing that ever happened to him. She had this thing, Databine. She'd say it when she was excited, which was always. The entire village could hear her from 3 blocks away. Naruto said nothing. You're nothing like her, Jiraiya continued. You're your father in a different coat. He was the same way, quiet, efficient, always 10 steps ahead. People think the 4th was just a nice guy who could teleport. He wasn't. He was the scariest person I ever trained, and I trained 2 of the 3 Sannin. He could look at you and you'd feel like he already knew how the conversation ended. Naruto pulled his hat lower. But underneath it, Jiraiya said, voice softening, he was the kindest man alive. He loved your mother. He loved this village. He loved you. The baby he'd known for 40 seconds before he died. He sealed the 9 tails into you because he trusted you to carry it. He believed you'd be strong enough. A long silence. He was right, Naruto said. Jiraiya smiled, sad and proud and old. Yeah, he was. The training trip wasn't about techniques, it was about range. Naruto spent 2.5 years testing Star Platinum's limits. Every morning, wherever they were, a beach in the land of water, a desert in the land of wind, a frozen pass in the land of iron. He'd wake before dawn and train. The time stop was the focus. 5 seconds. That was where he'd started, at the Valley of the End. 5 seconds of frozen reality. 5 seconds where Naruto Uzumaki was the only moving thing in a static universe. He pushed, day after day, week after week, straining against a limit that existed somewhere in the overlap between his soul and the stand's manifestation. The time stop was the most powerful ability Star Platinum possessed. The inherited technique of a dead vampire, taken through combat, carried through death, and now expanding in a body that had chakra reserves the size of a small ocean. The chakra helped. Jiraiya was right about one thing. Naruto's reserves were monstrous, a combination of Uzumaki bloodline and the 9 tails sealed inside him. He couldn't shape chakra into jutsu, but the raw energy fed Star Platinum like fuel feeding a fire. The stand burned brighter in this world than it ever had in the old one. 6 seconds by the end of month 3. 7 seconds by month 8. 8 seconds by month 14. Each additional second was a war against the fabric of reality itself. A negotiation between a human soul and the laws of physics, conducted entirely through willpower. By the end of the 2.5 years, Naruto could stop time for 12 seconds. 12 seconds. An eternity in a fight. A lifetime in a stopped moment. Enough time to cross any battlefield, reach any enemy, and deliver enough punishment to end anything. Jiraiya never saw the time stop in action. He couldn't. When time was stopped, he was stopped with it. But he saw the results. He'd be standing next to Naruto on a road, and then suddenly a bandit camp 200 meters away would be flattened, every man unconscious, every tent destroyed, and Naruto would be exactly where he'd been standing, with his hands in his pockets and a faintly annoyed expression. They were blocking the road. Naruto, there were 40 of them, and now there are 0. Jiraiya would stare, then write in his notebook, then stare some more. There were fights on the road. Missing nin, bandits, the occasional rogue samurai who'd heard about a tall kid in a black coat traveling with a white-haired old man and decided that sounded like an easy target. None of the fights lasted more than seconds. Naruto moved through them the way weather moves through a landscape, unstoppable, indifferent, leaving wreckage behind without slowing down. A rogue jonin from the Hidden Stone ambushed them outside a border town. He used earth release, walls of stone, projectiles, the ground itself turning hostile. Star Platinum punched through every wall. Star Platinum caught every projectile. Star Platinum grabbed the man by his flak jacket and threw him through 2 buildings and into a horse trough. The fight lasted 4 seconds. A squad of missing nin from the hidden mist tried to collect a bounty that had apparently been placed on Jiraiya's head. 6 swordsmen, coordinated, experienced, attacking at night from concealed positions. Naruto was asleep when they attacked. He woke up when one of them made the mistake of stepping on a twig within Star Platinum's sensory range. He didn't open his eyes. He didn't sit up. 6 thuds, 6 unconscious bodies. Star Platinum did the work while Naruto lay in his bedroll. Jiraiya, who had been in the latrine, came back to find 6 armed men piled up outside the campsite like firewood. Did I miss something? Go back to sleep, old man. The return to Konoha came on a Tuesday, a word Naruto hated because it meant the week was barely started and already tedious. They walked through the gates in the late morning. The sun was high. The village looked different, rebuilt after the invasion, taller, newer. The scars of Orochimaru's attack healed over with fresh paint and new foundations. The Hokage monument had Tsunade's face now, carved next to the forts, and the village hummed with the energy that was part recovery and part defiance. Naruto walked through the gates, and the first thing that happened was absolute chaos. He was taller, 15 years old, and he shot past 6'5" to an absurd 6'7". His shoulders had broadened to the point where he had to turn slightly sideways to fit through standard doorways. His jaw was sharper. His hair was wilder. The hat, still the same hat, maintained with a care he showed nothing else, sat on his head like it had been designed there. The coat hung to his knees, open, revealing a frame that would make sculptors weep and then immediately start working. The first person to see him was a civilian woman carrying groceries. She rounded a corner, looked up, looked further up, and dropped her bags. An apple rolled across the street. She didn't pick it up. She just stared. The second person was a chunin on patrol who stopped mid-stride and whispered something to his partner. His partner looked. His partner's mouth fell open. By the time Naruto had walked 3 blocks, there was a crowd. It wasn't intentional. People just stopped. They stopped walking, stopped talking, stopped doing whatever they were doing and stared at the figure moving through the village like a monument that had decided to go for a walk. That's Naruto Uzumaki, the kid who held the Eastern Wall? He's not a kid anymore. He's 15. He's 15? Jiraiya walked behind him, grinning like a man watching a fireworks show. This is going to be fun, he muttered. Sakura found him first. She came around a corner outside the hospital. She'd been training under Tsunade for 2.5 years, had become a medical ninja of genuinely terrifying skill, and had developed a right hook that could crack boulders. She was carrying a stack of medical scrolls, her hair cropped shorter, her eyes sharper, her entire bearing transformed form from the uncertain girl she'd been into a woman who could heal you and then put you right back in the hospital. She saw Naruto. The scrolls hit the ground. Her mouth opened. Her face went through approximately 15 colors in 3 seconds, settling on a shade of red that would have made a sunset jealous. Her hands came up to her mouth. Her eyes went wide. Her brain, her brilliant analytical Tsunade-trained brain, shut down entirely and was replaced by a single repeating thought that she would deny under torture. Oh no, he got hotter. Naruto? He looked at her, the hat tilted down, one blue eye visible. Sakura, he said her name. In that voice, that deep, flat, impossibly composed voice, Sakura punched the nearest wall. The wall cracked. A section the size of a dinner table broke off and crashed to the ground. Structural damage, in broad daylight, in front of the hospital. Naruto didn't flinch. You've gotten stronger. Sakura was breathing hard. Her fist was still in the wall. You can't just 2.5 years and you come back looking like, Yakamashi, you're loud. I will be as loud as I want, Naruto Uzumaki. He walked past her. She stood in the rubble of the wall she destroyed, chest heaving, face burning, and watched him go. Ino arrived 40 seconds later. She'd sensed the disturbance the way Yamanaka sensor sensed everything, through the emotional shockwave that Sakura had just sent through half the village. She saw Naruto. She grabbed the nearest pole for support. Oh, she said. Oh, I know, Sakura said, still standing in the wall. I know! Hinata found out through the Hyuga compound grapevine, which moved faster than any intelligence network in the village when the topic was sufficiently interesting. A branch family member burst into the training hall where Hinata was practicing gentle fist forms and said, breathlessly, Naruto Uzumaki is back. Hinata's gentle fist strike missed the training post and hit the wall behind it. The wall shattered. Everyone in the training hall dove for cover. Where? Hinata started. Main Street, heading toward the Hokage Tower. Hinata activated her Byakugan. She looked through 7 walls, 2 buildings, and a storage shed. She found him. She saw the coat, the hat, the height, the jaw. The way he walked, each step a statement, each stride an announcement that the world had the privilege of existing on the same plane as his boots. Hinata made a sound like a tea kettle reaching critical temperature. Her face went from pale to red to purple in the span of 2 heartbeats. Her Byakugan flickered. She swayed. She did not faint. She grabbed the doorframe with both hands, planted her feet, and held on with the fierce determination of a woman who had spent 2.5 years training to be stronger in every possible way, including the specific strength required to remain conscious in Naruto Uzumaki's proximity. Her knuckles were white. Her teeth were clenched. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but she did not faint. It was, by any measurement, the most impressive feat of willpower the Hyuga compound had witnessed in a generation. Hinata-sama, are you? I'm fine, she said through gritted teeth. I'm completely fine. She held on for 30 more seconds. Then she collapsed, but 30 seconds was a personal best. Naruto reached the Hokage Tower. He walked into Tsunade's office without knocking, because he had never knocked on any door in either of his lives and wasn't about to start. Tsunade was at her desk. She'd aged, or rather, she hadn't, because her transformation jutsu prevented visible aging, but her eyes were older. The war, the invasion, the weight of leading a wounded village through recovery, it all lived behind those amber irises. She looked up. She saw him. You're back. I'm back. You're taller. Yes. Sit down. I have a mission. No welcome ceremony. No debrief. Tsunade understood him. She'd always understood him, in the way that powerful people recognize each other across any distance. She didn't waste his time. He didn't waste hers. Intelligence from our spy network has located Orochimaru's primary base. More importantly, it's confirmed that Sasuke Uchiha is there. She folded her hands. I'm assigning this to Team Kakashi. You, Sakura, Kakashi, and a new member, Sai. Who's Sai? Root Anbu, Danzo's man. He's been assigned to your team as a replacement for Sasuke. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Not at the mission, at the word replacement. Nobody replaces anyone, he said. Agreed, but he's on your team regardless. Watch him. Danzo has his own agenda. Everyone has their own agenda. Yours is the only one I'm funding. She pushed a mission scroll across the desk. Bring back intel on Orochimaru's operations. If you encounter Sasuke, use your judgment. Naruto took the scroll. He stood. He walked to the door. Naruto. He stopped. Be careful. Yar days. He put his hands in his pockets and left. Sai was waiting at the village gates. He was pale. Black hair, cropped. A smile that sat on his face like it had been placed there by someone who'd read about smiles in a textbook, but never witnessed one in nature. He wore a short shirt that exposed his midriff and carried a tanto and a scroll of ink brushes. You must be Naruto, Sai said, extending his hand. I've read your file. You're the Jinchuriki with the unclassified combat ability. Your penis must be. Naruto's stare hit him like a wall. Sai's smile remained. His hand remained extended. The sentence remained unfinished because every instinct in his body, even the ones Danzo had tried to condition out of him, recognized that completing it would be a mistake of historic proportions. A long silence. Is he always like this? Naruto asked Kakashi, who had appeared behind him with his book. Apparently, Kakashi said. I read in a book that commenting on physical attributes creates social bonds, Sai offered. Read a different book, Naruto said. Sakura arrived, saw Sai smile, looked at Naruto's expression, and immediately positioned herself between them with the practiced ease of someone who had spent her career as a human in the buffer zone. Let's just go, she said. They went. The journey to Orochimaru's base took 3 days. The base was carved into the bedrock, beneath a mountain range in the land of rice fields. A sprawling underground complex of tunnels, laboratories, and chambers that stank of chemicals and cruelty, and the particular flavor of ambition that ruins everything it touches. Kakashi led the infiltration. They entered through a drainage tunnel that Jiraiya's intelligence had marked as the least defended entry point. The air was cold and wet and wrong. Naruto felt the wrongness immediately. The base was saturated with it, the residue of experiments, of screaming, of a man who had spent decades taking people apart to understand how they worked and putting them back together in ways they were never meant to go. This place is a nightmare factory, Sakura whispered, her medical training giving her a vocabulary for the stains on the walls that she wished she didn't have. Stay focused. Kakashi murmured. The first guards found them in the second corridor. 3 of Orochimaru's personal soldiers, curse mark bearers, enhanced, transformed into things that were only partially human. Intru. 1 word. That's how far the first guard got. Star Platinum hit all 3 simultaneously. 3 impacts, 3 bodies, 3 walls. The sound echoed through the tunnel like a drum roll played on stone. Sai stared at the 3 guard-shaped craters in the corridor walls. His smile was gone for the first time since they'd met. In its place was something that looked like genuine recalculation. That was fast, Sai said. That was slow, Naruto corrected. I'm being polite. They moved deeper. More guards, more experiments, more rooms full of things that Sakura tried not to look at, and Kakashi cataloged for later with the detachment of a man who had seen too much to be surprised by anything except the depth of human cruelty, which always managed to find a new floor. A laboratory door burst open. A massive figure, 8 feet tall, curse mark fully activated, body covered in bone-like protrusions, charged at them with a war cry that shook dust from the ceiling. I am Orochimaru-sama's greatest creation. I was built to destroy anything that... Aura! 1 punch. Center mass. The creation hit the far end of the laboratory, crashed through 2 walls, and embedded itself in what appeared to be a storage room full of specimen jars. Naruto stepped over the debris without breaking stride. Was that another guard? Sakura asked. He said he was the greatest something. I stopped listening. They found Orochimaru's main chamber on the 3rd sublevel. The snake Sanin was there. He looked worse. His body, the latest stolen body, was deteriorating visibly. His skin was sallow. His movements were stiff. The immortality he'd chased for decades was rotting out from under him, each borrowed form lasting less than the one before. The diminishing returns of a man who had mortgaged his humanity for a loan that was coming due. He was sitting on a stone throne in a room full of candles and snake motifs, and he looked up when Naruto walked through the reinforced door that Star Platinum had torn off its hinges. Their eyes met. Orochimaru's hand went to his jaw, unconsciously, a reflex. The memory of a fist that had rearranged his face 3 years ago in a forest, delivered by a 12-year-old who had counted to 2 before the snake ran. Ah, Orochimaru said. The boy with the invisible fists, you've grown. You haven't, Naruto said. You look worse. Bodies are temporary. Knowledge is forever. You're dying. I'm transitioning. You're dying and lying about it. Where's Sasuke? Orochimaru smiled. It was a thin, venomous thing. Sasuke-kun is beyond your reach. He's become something magnificent. My masterpiece, my vessel, my... Naruto took 1 step forward. The air pressure in the room tripled. Candles blew out in a circle around him. Orochimaru's smile vanished. I'm going to ask 1 more time, Naruto said, and then I'm going to stop asking. The snake's yellow eyes darted to the exits. 3 of them, all behind Naruto. All he realized with a chill that reached his modified bones within the range of whatever invisible thing this boy controlled. He left, Orochimaru said quickly. 2 hours ago, he sensed your arrival. His Sharingan has grown beyond my expectations. He's somewhere in the upper levels. Naruto stared at him for 3 seconds, then turned and walked out of the chamber. You're not going to fight me? Orochimaru called after him, a note of something that sounded dangerously close to relief in his voice. You're already dead, Naruto said without turning around. You just haven't stopped moving. Orochimaru sat in his chamber and stared at the empty doorway for a long time. His hands were shaking. He clenched them until they stopped. 3 months later, Sasuke would kill him. Easily, almost casually. He would absorb the snake's power and shed the relationship like a skin he'd outgrown. But in that moment, in the candlelit room, watching the black coat disappear around a corner, Orochimaru had the unsettling thought that Sasuke was the second scariest person to walk out of his base that day. They found Sasuke on the surface. He was standing on the ridgeline above the base, silhouetted against the sky, the wind pulling at his clothes. He looked different. 3 years of Orochimaru's training had changed his body, leaner, harder, the soft edges of adolescence replaced by something angular and dangerous. He wore a white shirt that hung open at the chest and a purple rope belt and carried a sword at his hip that he hadn't had before. His eyes were Sharingan red. 3 Tomoe, fully matured, spinning with a focus that cut through distance like a blade. He looked at Naruto. Naruto looked at him. The wind blew between them. Kakashi tensed behind them. Sakura's hands curled into fists. Sai reached for his tanto, a long moment. Yar days, Naruto said. You haven't changed. Sasuke's expression flickered. Something moved behind those red eyes. Recognition, resentment, something else that might have been relief, buried so deep that even the Sharingan couldn't see it clearly. Neither have you, Sasuke said. That's the problem. Come back to Konoha. I have unfinished business. With Orochimaru, he's a stepping stone. Always was. Itachi. Sasuke's jaw tightened. The name hit him the way it always did, like a knife between ribs that he'd learned to breathe around. Stay out of my way, Naruto. He turned. He began to walk. Sasuke. The Uchiha stopped. Don't do anything stupid. A pause. Sasuke almost smiled. The muscles around his mouth twitched in a direction they hadn't been used to in years. Since when do you care? Since always. Naruto's voice was flat. His hands were in his pockets. His hat was low. He said it the way he said everything, like a fact that didn't need emphasis because the truth was its own emphasis. Sasuke stood still for a long moment. Then he walked away. Down the ridge, into the trees, into the distance that had always existed between them. He didn't look back. Naruto watched him go. His hand tightened in his pocket. Star Platinum stirred behind him, its presence heavy and silent and loyal. We're leaving, Naruto said. Kakashi stared at his retreating back. The Jonin had been prepared for a fight, for another Valley of the End, another catastrophe, another clash between two forces that bent the world around them. He had not been prepared for Naruto to let Sasuke walk away. Naruto, he's not our problem today. Move. Kakashi processed this for the entire walk home. 3 days of trail. 3 days of Sai making inappropriate comments that Naruto ignored. 3 days of Sakura asking questions that Naruto answered with single words. 3 days of Kakashi replaying that moment on the ridgeline, the way Naruto had looked at Sasuke, the way Sasuke had almost smiled, and trying to understand the calculus behind letting a rogue ninja walk free. On the 3rd night, Kakashi finally asked, "Why didn't you stop him?" They were camped near a river. Naruto was fishing. Sakura was asleep. Sai was sketching in a notebook. Naruto didn't look up from the water. Because he's going to kill Orochimaru. Then he's going to find Itachi. Then he's going to learn the truth. And when the truth breaks him, he'll come back. He'll come back because there's nowhere else to go. And if he doesn't come back, then I'll go get him. Same as always. Kakashi sat with that for a long time. Then he pulled out his book and pretended to read it. Months passed. The Akatsuki moved in the open now. They stopped hiding. They stopped being rumors and became headlines. Entire villages reporting attacks, Jinchuriki disappearing, bodies left behind with the kind of damage that made experienced investigators request transfers. Hidan and Kakuzu were the first to come to the Land of Fire. The intelligence came through Shikamaru's network. The Nara heir had become Konoha's primary tactical coordinator, his genius finally given a scope that matched its scale. Two Akatsuki members had crossed into fire country. Their path pointed directly toward Konoha. Asuma Sarutobi intercepted them first. Asuma, the third Hokage's son, a jonin of genuine strength, a man with more to fight for than he had ever properly said, engaged the pair near a highway checkpoint. He died. Shikamaru arrived at the scene and found his sensei's body. He stared at it for a long time. Then he went to find Naruto. He found him on the Hokage monument, sitting on the fourth stone head, legs dangling over the edge, reading a magazine about ocean currents. They killed Asuma, Shikamaru said. His voice was flat, controlled, furious in a way that didn't raise its volume because volume was wasted energy. Naruto closed the magazine. Where are they? Heading northwest, toward the border. They're not running, they're walking, taking their time. Confident. They have reason to be. One of them is immortal. Can't be killed, literally. He gets cut in half and keeps talking. The other has 5 hearts and elemental masks that use fire, wind, lightning, water, and earth. Naruto stood up. He put on his hat. I'll handle it. Naruto, this is my. You'll get your revenge, Shikamaru. But they need to be stopped before they reach the next town. You can plan the aftermath. I'll make sure there is one. Shikamaru looked at him. The Nara genius had seen what Naruto could do. He'd seen the Mizuki incident report. He'd heard the Chunin exam stories. He'd watched from the walls during the invasion. He ran the numbers in his head. 2 S-rank Akatsuki members against 1 Naruto Uzumaki, and came to the conclusion that the Akatsuki members were the ones he should be worried about. Go, Shikamaru said. Naruto went. He found them on a forest road near the border. 2 figures in black cloaks with red clouds. One was silver-haired with a scythe. The other was tall and hunched with a mask covering everything below his eyes. Hidan was in the middle of a sentence when Naruto arrived. And so Jashin demands that all who fall before me become sacrifices to his eternal glory. The ritual must be observed. The blood must be shed. The prayer must... He'd been talking for about 45 seconds. Naruto had landed in the road in front of them about 5 seconds in. I, Jotaro Kujo, don't have the slightest interest in you. Hidan stopped, blinked. His purple eyes narrowed. The hell? Who's Jotaro Kujo? I'm trying to do a ritual here. Do you have any idea who I? Star Platinum. The next 8 seconds were the loudest thing that Forest had ever experienced. Aura, 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 aura. Star Platinum's fists came down on Hidan like a meteor shower with a grudge. Each punch drove the immortal man deeper into the earth. The ground cracked, split, collapsed. Hidan's body, immortal, indestructible, blessed by a god who apparently didn't include structural integrity in the package, took every hit and survived every hit, but was driven so deep into the ground with each successive punch that by the 8th second, there was nothing visible but a hole. A deep hole. A very, very deep hole. From several meters underground, muffled but distinctly audible, Hidan's voice rose. What the hell was that? Get me out of here! Jashin will hear about this! Ow! Naruto looked down at the hole. Stay there. The screaming continued. Naruto turned his attention to Kakuzu. Kakuzu had not moved. He had watched his partner get pile-driven into the Earth's crust in 8 seconds and was now reassessing every intelligence report he'd ever read about this target. He was old. He was experienced. He had fought the first Hokage and survived. He had collected bounties on ninja whose names were taught in history classes. He recognized a losing fight when he saw one. His threads erupted. His 4 elemental masks detached from his back and spread into formation. Fire, wind, lightning, water, each one a weapon capable of leveling a building, each one fed by a stolen heart that gave Kakuzu his legendary endurance. The masks opened their mouths. 4 elements gathered simultaneously. Combined, Star Platinum hit the first mask. The fire mask crumpled like paper, its stolen heart destroyed by a fist that hit with the force of a collapsing building. The heart burst. The mask went dead, in the same motion, the same breath, the same heartbeat. Star Platinum's other fist took the wind mask. Then both fists moved to the lightning and water masks in a sequence that lasted less than 2 seconds and sounded like 4 thunderclaps played simultaneously. 4 masks, 4 hearts, 4 destroyed, in a barrage so fast and so precise that Kakuzu's threads were still reaching for their defensive formation when the last mask hit the ground. Kakuzu staggered. One heart left. His own. His threads flailed, reaching for Naruto, trying to pierce, trying to constrict, trying to buy time for a man who had suddenly realized that 5 hearts weren't enough. Star Platinum grabbed every thread, every single one. Dozens of them, caught in invisible fists, held taut. Kakuzu felt the grip and felt something he hadn't felt since the first Hokage's wood had wrapped around his body a lifetime ago. Fear. Star Platinum pulled. Kakuzu came apart. The threads ripped free. His body, held together by those threads for decades, a patchwork of stolen parts and borrowed time, separated at the seams and fell to the ground in silence. His last heart stopped. Naruto stood in the road. Kakuzu's remains were scattered around him like the aftermath of a machine that had run past its last repair. From underground, Hidan was still screaming prayers and curses and promises of divine retribution. "Good grief," Naruto said. "What a pair!" He adjusted his hat and turned around. Behind him, at the edge of the road, the Konoha backup team had arrived. Shikamaru, Ino, Choji, Kakashi. They stood in a line at the tree line, staring at the battlefield, at Kakuzu's disassembled form, at the hole in the ground that was still yelling, at the teenage boy in the coat who was walking toward them with his hands in his pockets like he'd just finished grocery shopping. Shikamaru looked at the scene, then at Naruto. How long? About 10 seconds for both. Shikamaru stared at the hole, then at Kakuzu, then at the craters. He ran the numbers. The numbers didn't make sense. He ran them again. They still didn't make sense. "Troublesome," he said, and lit a cigarette. Pain came on a morning that started like every other. Naruto was eating ramen at Ichiraku's. The old man, Tochi, had made it special the way he always did for his favorite customer. Extra pork, extra noodles, a bowl the size of a small bathtub. The first explosion hit the Western District. Naruto's chopstick stopped halfway to his mouth. He heard it, felt it, the concussive force rolling through the village like a wave, followed by screams. Plural, hundreds of them. He set the chopsticks down. He picked up his hat. He put on his coat. "Sorry, old man. I'll finish later." Tucci looked at the rising smoke above the rooftops. His face was white. "Go, Naruto." He went. The village was dying. Buildings toppled. The market district was a crater. The hospital was on fire. Shinobi engaged in the streets against figures that moved with inhuman coordination. 6 bodies, each one with ringed eyes, each one wielding a different power, each one connected to the same intelligence like fingers on a hand. The 6 paths of pain. Naruto moved through the destruction at full speed. Star Platinum propelled him. Burst after burst of force against the ground, launching him forward at speeds that turned buildings into blurs. He dodged debris. He punched through a falling wall. He grabbed a child from a collapsing storefront and deposited them in an alley without slowing down. He reached the center of the village in 40 seconds. Tendo Pain, the lead body, the Deva Path, the face of Nagato's god complex, was floating above the wreckage, hovering, arms spread. The Rinnegan swept the destruction below like a security camera surveying its own work. Behind and around him, the other 5 paths operated in formation. The animal path calling summons, the Asura path firing arm-mounted weapons, the human path hunting survivors, the Naraka path standing in reserve, the Preta path absorbing everything thrown at it. Konoha's shinobi were fighting back. Kakashi engaged the Deva path and lasted 7 minutes, the longest anyone had ever survived against Tendo in direct combat, before a Shinra Tensei blast threw him through a building. He crawled out alive, barely, his Sharingan spinning uselessly against an opponent whose power didn't rely on speed or technique, but on the fundamental forces of the universe. Naruto arrived. He landed in the main street, a crater that had been a road 2 minutes ago. He stood up. Dust and smoke swirled around him. His coat was clean. His hat was straight. Tendo noticed him immediately. The Rinnegan's gaze snapped down from the sky and locked onto the figure in the black coat standing in the middle of the destruction. "You're the Nine Tails' Jinchuriki." Tendo's voice carried across the ruined street with the flat authority of a man who genuinely believed he was God. "You are the reason we came." Naruto looked up at the floating figure. The hat cast its shadow. His eyes burned blue. "And you made a mess of my village to say hello. What a pain. he said it flatly, like the destruction of his home was a scheduling conflict. This world knows only suffering, Tendo continued, descending slightly. I am pain. I am the messenger of God. I came to bring peace through. You've already talked too much. Tendo's ringed eyes narrowed. Naruto moved. The animal path was first. It opened its mouth to call a summoning. A giant centipede, a multi-headed dog, the full menagerie of pain-stolen creatures. Star Platinum was faster. The stand's fist connected with the animal path's chest before the summoning hit the ground. The path flew backward, crashed through the ruins of a weapon shop, and didn't get up. The summoning, half materialized, flickering between existence and smoke, collapsed before it finished forming. The Ashura path turned. Its body opened, mechanical components unfolding from its torso, arms splitting into projectile launchers, the full arsenal of a weaponized puppet body. It fired everything at once. Missiles, chakra blasts, shrapnel. Star Platinum stood between the barrage and Naruto. Every projectile that entered its range was caught, deflected, or crushed. Missiles were slapped aside like thrown paper. Chakra blasts dissipated against invisible palms. Shrapnel fell to the ground in handfuls. Then Star Platinum punched through the Ashura Path's torso. Through it. The fist went in the front, and the mechanical spine came out the back. The Ashura Path spasmed, sparked, and dropped. The human path came from behind. Its hand reached for Naruto's head. The soul extraction technique, a touch that ripped the soul from the body, the most terrifying technique in Pain's arsenal. Star Platinum caught the reaching arm, caught it at the wrist. The human path's fingers were 6 inches from Naruto's skull. Naruto didn't turn around. You left yourself wide open. Star Platinum's other fist hit the human path in the face. The path left the ground, left the street, left the general area. It landed somewhere in the Western District. It didn't come back. The Naraka path tried to summon the King of Hell. The massive spectral entity began to rise from the ground. A giant head with flame-wreathed features, its mouth opening to pass judgment on the living. Star Platinum punched the King of Hell in the face. The hit connected with the spectral entity's jaw, and the King of Hell recoiled. A being of spiritual energy, supposedly beyond physical harm, rocked by a force that existed in the same category. Because Star Platinum was a stand, it hit spirits and souls and things that live beyond the physical world. It had always hit those things. That was what it was. The King of Hell dissipated. The Naraka path collapsed, its channeling disrupted, its connection to its power source broken by a single hit that had reached across the metaphysical boundary and said, no. The Preta path stepped forward. Its ability was absorption. Any chakra-based attack that touched it was consumed, nullified, turned into nothing. It was Pain's shield. It had never failed. It had absorbed S-rank jutsu without flinching. It raised its hands toward Naruto. Naruto walked up to it. The Preta path activated its absorption field. The air around it hummed with the technique, a vortex of consumption that pulled chakra from everything nearby. Naruto walked through it. The absorption field found Star Platinum's force and tried to consume it. It failed. Star Platinum was a stand. It ran on something that was not chakra, not natural energy, not any form of power that existed in this world's taxonomy. The Preta path's absorption was designed for chakra. Star Platinum was the manifestation of a soul from another universe. The technique had nothing to grab, nothing to drain. It was trying to absorb the concept of stubbornness and finding that stubbornness was not on the menu. Naruto reached the Preta path. He was close enough to see his own reflection in the Renegade's rings. Aura! One punch. The Preta path dropped 5 paths down. Tendo Pain remained. The Deva path floated above the ruins alone now, its 5 extensions broken. Its god-level coordination reduced to a single body with the most dangerous ability in Nagato's arsenal, gravitational manipulation. The power to push, the power to pull, the power to flatten landscapes and level mountains and rearrange the physical world through sheer force of will. Tendo descended. He landed on the rubble-strewn street. His Rinnegan blazed. Impressive, he said. You destroyed 5 bodies in less than a minute. You are everything the intelligence suggested and more. Naruto faced him, 15 feet apart. The village was burning behind them. Smoke rose. Sirens, the emergency system, activated for the first time since the Nine Tails attack, wailed in the distance. But you cannot stop this. Tendo raised his hands. The air warped, gravity shifted. Every piece of debris, every chunk of stone and steel and broken dream within a 100-meter radius lifted off the ground and began to orbit the Deva path like satellites around a planet. You cannot stop God. The debris compressed, formed a sphere, a cataclysmic technique building in the air above them, enough mass and force to level everything within a mile. Shinra Tensei. The gravitational repulsion blast detonated, a wall of force, invisible, unstoppable. The hand of a self-proclaimed god pressing down on the world erupted outward from Tendo's body. It flattened buildings, it pulverized the ground. It turned the air into a weapon and threw the weapon at everything alive. Naruto watched it come. 2 seconds to impact. A wall of force traveling at the speed of sound, carrying enough power to destroy what was left of Konoha. Behind him, people were still alive. Behind him, Sakura was healing wounded. Behind him, Kakashi was on his back, barely conscious. Behind him, Hinata was pulling children from rubble. Behind him was everyone. Star Platinum, the world. Time stopped. The Shinra Tensei froze. The wall of gravitational force, a mile-wide wave of destruction, hung in the air like a photograph. Every molecule suspended, every particle locked. The blast radius existed as a frozen moment, a snapshot of annihilation that had been paused by a power that did not care about gods or gravity or the difference between the two. Naruto stood and stopped time. The silence was total. The world was a painting. He walked forward, through the frozen shockwave, past the suspended debris, through the gravitational field that should have been pushing him away at the speed of sound, but was instead standing perfectly still because time itself was standing still. He reached Tendo. The Deva path was frozen mid-technique, arms raised, Rinnegan blazing, face set in the expression of a man who had just detonated his strongest attack and fully expected it to end everything. Naruto looked at that face, borrowed, dead. A puppet on strings held by a crippled man in a tower who had decided that mass murder was the path to peace. Good grief. He clenched his fist. Ora 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 ora. The barrage and stop time was devastating beyond vocabulary. Star Platinum's fists hit Tendo at full force, every punch carrying the combined weight of Naruto's rage and grief and the particular fury reserved for people who destroy homes. The impacts created visible distortions in the frozen air, ripples in stop time, cracks in the moment, places where even frozen reality couldn't fully absorb the force being delivered. The final ore connected with Tendo's center mass and sent a spiderweb of temporal distortion radiating outward. Naruto exhaled. Time resumes. The world moved. The Shinra Tensei dissipated. Without Tendo's active control, the gravitational blast lost cohesion and scattered into nothing. A mile-wide catastrophe reduced to a strong breeze that ruffled Naruto's coat. Tendo pain blasted out of the sky. The Deva path hit the ground at the edge of the village with an impact that left a trench 30 meters long. The body bounced once, twice, and came to rest against the base of the village wall. It didn't get up. The village was still standing. Every building behind Naruto, damaged, burning, battered, but standing. Every person behind him, wounded, scared, bleeding, but alive. The Shinra Tensei had been stopped. The village had been saved. One boy, one stand, one frozen moment. The smoke cleared. Naruto stood alone in the center of the destruction. His coat was torn at the hem. His hat had a scratch across the brim. His hands were in his pockets. Around him, the survivors emerged. From behind rubble. From inside collapsed shelters. From the hospital, from the academy, from every hiding place and stronghold and last resort. They came out and they looked at the battlefield and they looked at the boy standing in the middle of it. And they understood, in the way that people understand earthquakes and eclipses, that they had just witnessed something beyond their ability to categorize. Someone started crying, then someone else. Then the whole village was crying. Relief and terror and gratitude all mixed together in a wave of emotion that swept through the streets like a second shockwave. Naruto ignored it. He had something else to do. He followed the signal. Nagato's real body, the source, the puppeteer, the man behind every path, was hidden in a tower outside the village, concealed within a massive paper construct created by his partner, Konan. Naruto found him. Nagato was worse than Naruto had expected. Emaciated, withered, His body was a ruin, legs useless, spine curved, his flesh stretched over bones like cloth over sticks. The Rinnegan blazed in his sunken face, the only vital thing about him, and even that carried the look of something that had burned too bright for too long. Konan stood beside him, protective, ready to fight. Her paper flickered around her like a living shield. Naruto sat down across from him. He didn't attack, he didn't threaten. He sat on the cold floor of the tower and looked at the man who had just tried to destroy his home, a long silence. "Your logic is garbage," Naruto said, "but I understand why you tried." Nagato flinched. He had expected rage, he had expected violence, he had expected the Jinchuriki to come through the door swinging, the way every other enemy had ever come. "You know nothing of my pain," Nagato said. His voice was weak, a whisper wrapped in conviction. "I lost everything. My parents, my friends, my country. This world creates suffering and calls it peace. I decided to end the cycle by creating more suffering, by creating understanding. You destroyed a village to make a point. That's not understanding. That's a tantrum." Nagato's Rinnegan flared. "You dare. I dare." Naruto's voice cut through the room. "I've lived 2 lives. I've lost more people than you know. I've buried friends in deserts and watched them die in places no one will ever find. I know what it feels like when the world takes everything from you and then asks you to say thank you." He leaned forward. His eyes, blue, ancient, carrying the weight of 2 complete existences, met the Rinnegan directly. "The difference between us is that I kept walking forward. You stopped. You stopped and built a machine out of your grief and pointed it at everyone who didn't deserve it." Nagato stared at him. The Rinnegan searched for deceit, for weakness, for the cracks in conviction that would prove this boy was nothing but bravado and borrowed power. It found nothing. "Fix it yourself," Naruto said. "Gedo Rinne-tensei, bring them back. That technique will kill me. I know. You would ask me to. I'm asking you to do one good thing before you go. One real thing. Something that matters more than your philosophy and your gods and your grief." Nagato's hands trembled. Konan looked at her partner with eyes full of pain and something that might have been recognition. The recognition of hearing someone say the truth that you've been refusing to hear for years. "Yahiko would have done it," Naruto said quietly. The name hit Naruto like a physical blow. Yako, his dead friend. The face he'd worn on his strongest path. The dream that had started everything. Before the dream curdled into revenge, Nagato's eyes closed. A tear traced down his ruined face. He activated the technique. The Gedo art of Rinne Rebirth erupted from his body like a pillar of light. It spread outward, through the tower, across the landscape, over the village, touching every soul that had been taken in the assault. Dead eyes opened, stopped hearts restarted, lungs that had collapsed filled with air. Across Konoha, the dead rose. Kakashi, who had died in the rubble, his heart stopped by the Devapath's final assault, gasped and sat up. Shizune coughed and opened her eyes. A dozen shinobi, 24 civilians, every life that pain had claimed, returned. The cost was Nagato's own life. The Rinnegan dimmed. His body, already broken, collapsed inward like a structure losing its final support. He slumped in his machine, his face peaceful in a way it hadn't been since childhood. Konan caught him. She held him. She cried in silence. Naruto watched. He sat there for a minute after the light faded, watching a woman hold a dead man who had finally done something right. He closed his eyes. Then he stood. He touched the doorframe once. He walked out. The walk back to Konoha was long. Through forests past the battlefield, through streets full of people who were dead 20 minutes ago and were alive now and couldn't understand why or how. They saw him coming. The villagers, the shinobi, the children and the elderly and the wounded and the resurrected. They lined the streets, some standing, some kneeling, some too injured to do either, and just lying there watching the road. Naruto walked through them. Hat low, coat torn, hands in his pockets. The village was alive. Damaged, burning, broken in 100 places, but alive, because he had held the center. Yar days, he said to nobody. Somebody threw a flower. It hit his shoulder. He didn't brush it off. More flowers followed. People were throwing them from windows, from rooftops, from the sides of the road. Flowers and paper streamers and pieces of colored cloth, the kind of spontaneous, unorganized. Emotionally incoherent celebration that happens when a community realizes it survived something it shouldn't have survived. Naruto walked through the flower rain without looking up. He went home. He sat on his bed. He stared at the ceiling. His apartment was undamaged. Star Platinum had placed itself between the building and the nearest blast radius during the fight, unconsciously, instinctively. The walls were fine. The fishing rods were fine. The magazines were fine. He picked one up. Ocean Currents in the Southern Hemisphere. He read for 3 hours. The world gave him 8 months before the next crisis. Sasuke killed Orochimaru. The news reached Konoha through intelligence channels, and Naruto heard it without surprise because he had told Kakashi this would happen, and Kakashi had finally stopped being surprised by things Naruto predicted. Then Sasuke found Itachi. The fight between the Uchiha brothers happened in a ruined compound during a thunderstorm. Naruto wasn't there. He didn't need to be there. Some fights belong to the people fighting them, and the gap between the Uchiha brothers was a wound that only the brothers could close. Itachi died. He died the way he had always planned to die, at his brother's hand, his last breath spent poking Sasuke's forehead one final time, a gesture so small and so enormous that it contained an entire relationship in 2 fingers. And then Obito found Sasuke. Obito, wearing Madara's name, wearing an orange mask, wearing the grudge of a dead boy who had decided the world owed him recompense for killing his crush under a rock. Obito told Sasuke the truth, the real truth, the village truth, the massacre truth, Danzo, the elders, the impossible choice that Itachi had made at 13 years old, kill your family or watch your village burn. Sasuke broke. The break was total. Everything he built, every motivation, every relationship, every thread that connected him to the world, snapped simultaneously. He pivoted from Avenger to Annihilator. His target shifted from his brother to his brother's masters. The village, the system, everything. He formed Taka. He went to the 5 Kage summit with blood in his eyes and ruin in his intentions. Naruto was there. Tsunade had sent him. She looked at him across her desk with an expression that said everything. I'm sending you because you're the only person who might be able to stop what's about to happen without everyone in the room dying. The summit was in the Land of Iron, a neutral territory, a country of samurai and frozen mountains and diplomacy enforced by swords instead of jutsu. The 5 Kage sat around a curved table, Tsunade for the leaf, the Raikage for the cloud, the Mizukage for the mist, the Tsuchikage for the stone, Gaara for the sand, Gaara. The red-haired boy with the raccoon eyes from the Chunin exams, now the Kazekage, calm, powerful, his eyes carrying the same weight that Naruto recognized from his own mirror. They argued about Akatsuki, about the tailed beasts, about Sasuke Uchiha, and what to do with a rogue S-class missing nin who was currently cutting a path of destruction through international territory. The Raikage slammed the table. The Uchiha must be eliminated. He attacked my brother. He attacked everyone, the Tsuchikage grumbled. Add him to the list. Execute him, the Raikage said, immediately. Naruto opened his eyes. He'd been sitting in the back of the room against the wall, hat pulled low, arms crossed. A guest, technically. An observer. Nobody had asked for his opinion. No, he said. The room went quiet. 5 Kage, their guards, their advisors. Every head turned toward the teenager in the corner. The Raikage's massive frame tensed. And who are you to make that call? Naruto looked at him. Full stare. No hat shadow. The blue eyes that had faced down pain and won. He's mine to deal with. Stay out of it. The Raikage held the stare. He was a mountain of a man. He had wrestled a tailed beast with his bare hands. He had arms that could crack diamond and a temper that could crack continents. He had never backed down from anything in his life. He held Naruto's gaze for 3 seconds. He looked away first. Fine, the Raikage said, and the words sounded like it physically hurt him. Gaara, from across the table, watched the exchange. A faint smile crossed his lips. He recognized the energy. He'd been hit by it once, a long time ago, in a desert of his own making. Sasuke hit the summit that night. He came through the ceiling. Literally. His Susanoo blazed to life around him as he descended. A skeletal warrior of purple chakra, rib cage forming first, then arms, then a face that was all fury and fire. Samurai guards engaged and were thrown aside like leaves. Naruto found him in the wreckage of the conference hall. Sasuke Susanoo stood around him like a cage of his own power. His eyes were Mangekyo, the evolved Sharingan, the pattern born from grief, spinning with a complexity that spoke of everything he'd lost and everything he intended to destroy. I know about Itachi, Naruto said. The Susanoo flickered. I know what the village did. I know what your brother did. I know everything. Sasuke looked down at him through the ribcage of chakra flames. His face was gaunt. His eyes were burning. His mouth was a line drawn by grief. Then you understand why I'll burn it down. I understand why you want to. That's different. Sasuke screamed. The Susanoo surged forward, a 20-foot construct of concentrated vengeance, its fist raised, Amaterasu blazing to life along its arm. Black flames, the fire that burns fire, the flame that consumes everything and answers to nothing, spread across the Susanoo's fist as it swung downward toward Naruto. Star Platinum, the world. Time stopped. The Susanoo froze. Amaterasu's black flames hung in the air, their eternal burning paused mid-flicker. Each tongue of fire a frozen sculpture of something that should never stop moving. Sasuke's expression was locked in place, rage and grief, and the specific kind of desperation that only exists in someone screaming at the only person who might be able to hear them. Naruto walked forward, through the frozen flames, past the Susanoo's immobilized fist, up to the ribcage. He pulled back his own fist. Star Platinum manifested behind him, blazing, violet and gold, its presence warping the frozen air. Aura, 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 aura. The Susanoo cracked. In stop time, where even eternal flames froze, Star Platinum's fists tore through the construct's ribcage with the thoroughness of a wrecking ball through glass. Each punch sent fractures spreading through the chakra construct. The Amaterasu dissipated, stripped from the Susanoo's surface by punches that carried enough force to disrupt the technique's molecular structure. The skeletal armor splintered, the arms broke, the face caved in. By the time Naruto finished, the Susanoo was in pieces around Sasuke's frozen body, like a chrysalis that had been kicked apart from the inside. Time resumes. The world moved. Sasuke hit the ground. On his knees. His Mangekyo dimmed. The pieces of his Susanoo dissolved into fading chakra around him. His body was shaking, from the impact, from the chakra drain, from the realization that had been building for years and was finally impossible to ignore. He couldn't close the gap. He had taken Orochimaru's training, his brother's eyes, his bloodline's strongest techniques, his grief and rage and every dark thing inside him, and forged them into a weapon, and it still wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Naruto stood in front of him. The hat cast its shadow. His hands were at his sides. You done? Sasuke, on his hands and knees, teeth grinding, looked up. His eyes were wet. It might have been pain. It might have been something he'd been holding back since the night he found his parents in a pool of blood at age 7. Why won't you just let me? Because I said I'd bring you back. So I will. Get up. The silence that followed was heavy enough to dent the floor. Sasuke got up, on his own, slowly. His legs shook. His eyes were raw. He stood and he looked at Naruto, and he said nothing because there was nothing to say that the fists hadn't already communicated. Naruto didn't offer his hand. Sasuke wouldn't have taken it. They both knew that. Go, Naruto said. Think. Come back when you're done being stupid. Sasuke stared at him for a long time. Then he turned and walked into the snow. He came back. Eventually. But first, the war. Madara Uchiha, or rather, Obito wearing Madara's ghost like a coat, declared the Fourth Great Ninja War. His objective, the infinite Tsukuyomi, an illusion cast on the moon that would put every living person on the planet into an eternal dream. No more pain, no more war, no more agency, no more choice, no more anything except a fantasy land designed by a man who couldn't accept that the girl he loved had died. The 5 great nations formed the Allied Shinobi Forces, the largest military alliance in the history of the ninja world. Every village, every nation, every soldier who could hold a kunai, united under a single command structure against a threat that would end civilization, Naruto was assigned to the battlefield as a one-man division. The War Council made this decision unanimously and without debate. Gaara proposed it. The Raikage seconded it. Tsunade confirmed it. Every strategist in the room agreed. Putting Naruto Uzumaki in a unit with other soldiers would be like putting a typhoon in a teacup. He operated on a scale that conventional formations couldn't accommodate. He was Division 0, a division of 1. "You're sending me alone?" Naruto said when they told him. "We're sending you first," Tsunade corrected. "The rest of the army is your backup." Yar days, the White Zetsu army hit the front lines at dawn. 100,000 of them, identical, mass-produced, grown from the body of the God Tree's remnants. They could copy any shinobi's appearance, mimic any fighting style, replace fallen comrades with copies indistinguishable from the originals. Against a conventional army, they were a nightmare of infiltration and attrition. Against Naruto, they were cardboard. He moved through the enemy formation at a speed that blurred him into a black streak across the battlefield. Star Platinum's fists cleared everything in range. A 2-meter sphere of devastation that moved wherever Naruto moved, which was everywhere. White Zetsu entered the sphere and left it as debris. They came in waves, and the waves broke against an invisible wall that hit back harder than anything they'd been designed to withstand. Hundreds per minute. The count was meaningless because nobody could count that fast. The Allied soldiers on the ridge watched the black-coated figure carving a path through the Zetsu horde, and their jaws dropped collectively. "What is that?" a young Chunin whispered. "That's Naruto Uzumaki," his commanding officer said. "Division 0. He's one person. Look at the field and tell me he needs to be more." The Chunin looked. The Zetsu army was being peeled apart from the inside. A visible empty space followed Naruto's path through the enemy like the eye of a hurricane, a clear expanding, filled with broken white bodies and the sound of impacts that could be heard from the ridge. 11 minutes. That's how long the assigned quadrant took. Naruto cleared it and then looked around for more. The way a man who's finished mowing his lawn looks at the neighbor's overgrown yard. Yar days. This is going to take a while. He moved to the next quadrant, and the next, and the next. By the end of the first day, the Zetsu army's front line had been broken. Thousands destroyed. The Allied forces' casualties were a fraction of what the strategists had projected, because the enemy had been so focused on dealing with the one-man division that they left gaps in their own formation that the conventional forces exploited. Naruto sat down on a rock at sunset and drank water from a canteen. Around him, the battlefield was a wasteland of white bodies. Star Platinum hovered behind him, invisible, tireless. A medic nin approached him cautiously. "Uzumaki-san, are you injured?" "No." "Do you need anything?" "A fishing magazine." The medic stared at him, then at the battlefield, then back at him. "I'll see what I can find." Day 2 brought the Edo Tensei. Kabuto Yakushi, Orochimaru's former right hand, a man who had turned his mentor's research into a weapon of unprecedented scale, activated the impure world reincarnation en masse. The dead rose. Not Zetsu imitations. Real shinobi, real legends, pulled back from the afterlife and bound to Kabuto's will. The battlefield changed overnight. Where the Zetsu had been quantity, the Edo Tensei was quality. The first and second Hokage. Previous Kage from every nation. The 7 swordsmen of the mist. S-rank missing nin. Jinchuriki of dead nations, carrying their tailed beasts, and Itachi Uchiha. Sasuke found Itachi on the Eastern Front. He'd arrived on the battlefield the previous night, alone, his Taka team disbanded, his intentions unclear. He'd walked through the Allied lines without resistance because every soldier who saw him had received the same orders. Let him pass. Naruto's orders, relayed through Gaara, carried without question. Itachi was standing in a field. His Akatsuki cloak was gone, replaced with the standard Edo Tensei wrappings, his body regenerating endlessly, his Sharingan alive in dead eyes. He'd been bound to fight for Kabuto's army. He was resisting. Every step, every action was a war between Kabuto's control and Itachi's will. Sasuke saw his brother and stopped walking. The world stopped with him. Sasuke, Itachi's voice, the real one, not distorted by jutsu or death or the lies that had separated them for a decade. Even now, Naruto appeared beside Sasuke. He'd moved through the battlefield at full speed to reach this point. He stood next to the Uchiha and said nothing. He let them have this. The reanimated enemies came. Drawn by the presence of the Jinchuriki, by the scent of living chakra, by Kabuto's commands. They came in a wave, the dead seven swordsmen, their legendary blades restored, their bodies tireless and regenerating. Naruto stepped forward. Between the brothers and the wave, every enemy that moved towards Sasuke and Itachi met Star Platinum. The swordsmen of the mist swung legendary weapons that had cut through armies. Star Platinum caught every blade, broke every blade, sent every swordsman flying in a different direction. They regenerated and came back. Star Platinum sent them flying again. They regenerated and came back. Star Platinum sent them flying again, harder. This continued until Itachi, fighting against his own bindings, found the opening he needed. He used Izanami, his final technique, a genjutsu that trapped the target in a loop of their own experiences until they accepted the truth of their actions. He cast it on himself, redirected it through his own Sharingan to target Kabuto's control mechanism. It was self-sacrifice as a jutsu. It was Itachi Uchiha's entire philosophy compressed into a single technique. The Edo Tensei wavered. Across the battlefield, the reanimated shinobi flickered. Kabuto's control was breaking. Itachi's body began to dissolve, the Edo Tensei releasing him. His last moments in the world of the living spent the same way as his first death for his brother. Naruto looked at Itachi as the technique collapsed. Good move. Itachi looked at him, those sad, wise, tired eyes. Take care of him. I said I would. Itachi smiled, a real one. Small and warm and gone in a second. He faded. Sasuke stared at the empty space where his brother had been. The ash of the Edo Tensei drifted in the air. His Mangekyo spun with a grief that had no target, a fury that had been redirected so many times it didn't know where to aim anymore. Naruto stood beside him. He didn't speak. He didn't touch him. He just stood there, the way a wall stands beside a building. Present, solid, going nowhere. After a long time, Sasuke said, "Let's go." Naruto nodded. They walked into the war together. The real Madara arrived on the third day. He came through a crack in reality itself, resurrected by the Rinne Tensei, his body alive and whole and young in a way that it hadn't been in centuries. Long black hair, red armor, Rinnegan blazing in one eye, Sharingan in the other. The god of shinobi. The man who had fought the first Hokage to a standstill and lost by a margin so slim it barely counted. The man who had planned this war from beyond the grave. He descended on the battlefield like a comet. The allied forces scattered. Not out of cowardice, out of physics. Madara's first technique was a meteor, an actual meteor. He pulled it from orbit with the Rinnegan's gravitational control and dropped it on the battlefield like a child dropping a rock on an anthill. The allied commanders gave the retreat order. The meteor filled the sky. Its shadow swallowed the battlefield. The temperature dropped as the mass displaced the atmosphere on its way down. Naruto looked up. He looked up at a rock the size of a village falling from the sky and felt Star Platinum stir behind him with something that might have been anticipation. Star Platinum. He jumped. Star Platinum launched him upward, a burst of force against the ground that sent him rocketing toward the meteor at a speed that left a sonic boom behind him. He rose like a missile. The wind tore at his coat. The meteor grew in his vision until it filled everything. A wall of stone and fire and gravitational energy lay falling. Aura, 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 aura. Star Platinum's fists hit the meteor. The impacts cracked the stone. Fissures spread across the meteor's surface like veins on a leaf. Each punch drove deeper, splitting rock, displacing mass, transferring enough force into the stone to redirect its trajectory by fractions of a degree that, across the distance remaining, added up to a full course correction. The meteor shifted. Its fall changed. What had been aimed at the Allied forces' center line was now aimed at the empty plateau to the east. Uninhabited, strategic value 0. The meteor hit the plateau. The impact was extinction level for everything within a mile of the landing zone, which was nothing and nobody because Naruto had redirected it in the 8 seconds between launch and impact. He landed back on the battlefield. His coat was smoking. His hat was singed. Across the field, 10,000 allied shinobi were staring at the mushroom cloud rising from the empty plateau, then at the teenager who had just punched a meteor out of the sky. Madara, standing on a rise overlooking the field, watched. Interesting, he said. He used limbo next. The shadow technique, invisible clones that existed in a realm beyond normal perception, able to strike from unseen angles, undetectable by the Sharingan, the Byakugan, or any sensor technique in the standard arsenal. 4 limbo clones materialized in the unseen realm around Naruto. They moved in coordination, one from each direction, synchronized, timed to hit simultaneously from angles that no single fighter could defend against, because no single fighter could see them. Star Platinum saw them. The stand existed outside this world's rules. It perceived reality through a framework that was older than chakra and broader than bloodlines. The limbo clones were invisible to this world's senses, but they were not invisible to a stand. They were not invisible to a fighting spirit born from a soul that had crossed the boundary between life and death, and between entire universes. Star Platinum saw the limbo clones the way it saw everything, clearly, completely, without surprise. 4 punches, 4 directions, 4 limbo clones hitting their hidden realm by fists that reached across dimensions the way Star Platinum had always reached across barriers, because that was what stands did. They existed in the gap between the visible and the real. 4 limbo clones dissipated. Madara's eyes widened. For the first time, genuinely. "You can see them," Madara said. "I can see everything," Naruto said. He walked toward Madara, across the battlefield, through the wreckage, step by step, each footfall steady, the coat flowing behind him, the hat casting its shadow. Madara summoned the perfect Susanoo, the complete form, a towering titan of chakra, hundreds of feet tall, armored in spectral blue, carrying a sword that could split mountain ranges with a single swing. It was the Uchiha's ultimate expression of power, a god-given form through pure ocular will. The Susanoo swung its sword. The blade came down like a falling horizon, a vertical line of destruction that split the air with a shockwave and bore down on Naruto with the force of a natural disaster made manifest. Aura! Star Platinum met the sword, one fist against a blade the size of a building. The impact was a detonation, a blast that flattened the terrain in a half-mile circle and sent a shockwave rolling across the battlefield that knocked soldiers off their feet 10 miles away. The sword cracked. Star Platinum's fist didn't. Naruto pressed forward, into the Susanoo structure, through the chakra armor. Star Platinum hit the ribcage and the ribcage splintered, hit the arms and the arms broke, hit the core, where Madara stood, protected by the full might of the Uchiha bloodline's greatest manifestation, and the core shattered. Madara fell from his destroyed Susanoo like a god falling from heaven. He hit the ground on his feet, because he was Madara Uchiha, and even a fall from a 100-foot construct was a controlled landing, and looked at Naruto with an expression that mixed fury and something uncomfortably close to respect. "What are you?" Madara asked. Naruto stopped. He pulled his hat down once. "Your problem." Madara attacked. Full speed. Sage of Six Paths taijutsu. His body was enhanced by the Rinnegan's power, by the remnants of Hashirama's cells in his system, by a lifetime of combat experience that spanned eras. He was fast. He was strong. He was everything the word legend was supposed to mean. Star Platinum was faster. Every strike Madara threw was caught, deflected, or countered. Every kick was redirected. Every technique was intercepted. The Susanoo reformed and Star Platinum broke it again. The Limbo clones reappeared and Star Platinum destroyed them again. Fire release, massive fireballs. Star Platinum punched through them. Wood release, stolen from Hashirama's cells. Star Platinum tore through the branches like they were kindling. Madara escalated. He pushed into his Rinne Sharingan. The third eye opened on his forehead. The infinite Tsukuyomi began. Light gathered above the battlefield. The moon brightened. The technique that would end all free will started its countdown. The light spread. People across the battlefield screamed. The Genjutsu's tendrils reached outward, seeking minds, seeking dreams, seeking the consciousness of every living thing on the planet to fold into an eternal sleep. Star Platinum, the world. Time stopped, the light froze. The infinite Tsukuyomi's expansion locked in place. A hemisphere of moonlight paused mid-cascade, reaching for a world it could no longer touch. The screams cut off. The wind stopped. Every particle of light and sound and force in the world went still. Naruto stood in the frozen landscape. He looked at Madara. The ancient Uchiha was locked in place, his third eye open, his arms raised, his face wearing the expression of a man who had just cast his ultimate technique and fully expected the world to end, Naruto walked toward him. Each step was deliberate. Each footfall echoed in the silence of stopped time. Star Platinum manifested fully, towering, violet and gold, its presence warping the frozen air, its fists blazing with an aura that cracked the ground beneath it. This was the moment. The ceiling. The peak of everything Star Platinum had ever been in either life. Naruto reached Madara. He looked at the face of the most powerful shinobi in history. A man who had lived for centuries. A man who had planned wars and toppled nations and reshaped the world according to his will. Good grief. Aura, 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 aura. The barrage was something beyond violence. Star Platinum's fists fell on Madara's frozen body with a force that tore reality at the edges. Each impact created a visible distortion and stopped time. Cracks in the moment, fractures in the frozen air, places where the force being delivered exceeded what the physics of a stopped world could contain. The ground beneath them cratered with each hit. The air rippled outward in waves that shouldn't exist in a frozen world, but existed anyway, because Star Platinum's power exceeded the rules. The Rinnegan dimmed under the assault. The third eye on Madara's forehead flickered. The connection to the infinite Tsukuyomi, the channel through which the Genjutsu flowed, cracked, splintered, broke. Each punch disrupted the technique further. Each impact severed another thread between Madara and the moon. The final aura hit the center of Madara's chest. Star Platinum's fist drove forward with everything. Everything from two lives. Everything from a soul that had crossed death and rebirth and the spaces between worlds. Everything from a boy who had grown up hated and a man who had grown old tired in a Klanathid. Stand that had existed before either of them had names. The Joestar birthmark, the star-shaped mark on Naruto's palm, hidden, ignored, carried across incarnations, blazed golden. The hit landed. Time resumes. The world moved. The infinite Tsukuyomi's light collapsed. The moonlight that had been reaching for the planet retreated, pulled back, scattered, dissipated by the destruction of the technique's user. The Genjutsu's tendrils withered and died. The hemisphere of light folded in on itself and vanished. Madara Uchiha hit the ground. The impact was a crater, a deep, wide, unmistakable crater in the center of the battlefield. Madara lay at its center, his armor destroyed, his Rinnegan flickering, his body held together by will and residual power and nothing else. He looked up at the sky, then at Naruto, who stood at the crater's edge, his coat torn, his hat intact, his eyes carrying the weight of the fight and the finality of the outcome. "You are something else entirely," Madara said. "A shinobi? No. Something different. Something from outside this world." "A stand," Naruto said. "You wouldn't understand it." Madara's mouth twitched. It might have been a smile. The smile of a man who had spent centuries looking for a worthy opponent and in his final moments was grudgingly satisfied. "Perhaps," Madara said. He closed his eyes, and then Black Zetsu betrayed him. It happened in a heartbeat. The parasite, the creature that had been living inside the timeline since before recorded history, manipulating every war, every Uchiha, every piece of the puzzle, emerged from the ground and drove itself into Madara's chest. Madara's eyes snapped open. His body convulsed. His mouth opened in a scream that was immediately swallowed by a transformation that was already consuming him from the inside. "No," Madara managed. "This wasn't I am Madara Uchiha! I will not be." "You were always a vessel," Black Zetsu hissed. Its voice was ancient and slick and satisfied in the way that parasites are satisfied when the host finally stops fighting. "Mother is coming." Madara's body tore open, from inside. From the stolen Rinnegan and the manipulated cells, and the body that had been engineered across centuries to serve as a vessel, something emerged. Something white-haired. Something three-eyed. Something that had eaten the fruit of the God tree 10,000 years ago and had been waiting, patiently, beyond death, beyond time, beyond everything for this exact moment. Kaguya Otsutsuki, the original. The mother of chakra. The god who preceded gods. She rose from Madara's ruined form like a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis. If the butterfly was the size of a building and radiated enough power to flatten the landscape just by existing. White hair that flowed like a river. A third eye on her forehead. The Rinne, the original, the eye that had stared at humanity from above since before civilization learned to stack stones. She looked at the battlefield, at the armies, at the world she had left behind millennia ago. Her gaze found Naruto. Their eyes met. Star Platinum reacted. The stand didn't stir in alarm, it surged. Its presence expanded behind Naruto like a tidal wave, violet and gold blazing, its aura warping the air for 30 meters in every direction. Star Platinum recognized this. Something in the stand's nature, something deep, something that lived in the space between souls and the universes they inhabited, recognized Kaguya's power the way a predator recognizes another predator. She was powerful. She was ancient. She was wrong in the way that only something that had been divine for too long and human for not long enough could be wrong. Naruto had faced this before. Different shape, different name, different era. Dio, a being of overwhelming power and absolute conviction, standing at the peak of the world, believing it was his, believing nothing could reach him. Something had reached him. Star Platinum, Naruto said. Kaguya opened a dimension. The sky tore. Reality split along a seam that ran from the ground to the clouds, and behind the seam was another world, a world of lava, where the ground was molten rock and the sky was ash, and the temperature was enough to vaporize a normal human in seconds. She pushed Naruto through. The dimension shift was instantaneous. 1 second, he was on the battlefield. The next, he was standing on a rock platform surrounded by an ocean of lava, the heat distorting the air, the sky red and choking. Kaguya appeared before him, floating. Her hair spread around her like a veil. Her Rinne blazed. She said nothing. She didn't need to. Gods don't explain themselves to insects. She formed the ash bones, the all-killing ash bones, projectiles made of chakra so refined that contact meant death, absolute death, the kind that unraveled your body at the molecular level and left nothing behind. She launched them, 12 ash bones. Each one aimed at a vital point, each one moving at speeds that defied the physics of the dimension they were in. Star Platinum caught them, every single one. 2 fingers per bone, 12 catches, 12 bones, each one plucked from the air with the same contemptuous precision that had caught Senbon in a dome of ice mirrors, that had caught a legendary sword in mid-swing, that had caught a god-killer technique like lint off a coat. Kaguya's third eye widened. Naruto crushed the bones in Star Platinum's fists. The ash scattered harmlessly. "You left yourself wide open," he said. He closed the distance. Star Platinum propelled him across the lava field in a single burst, boots skimming the molten surface, the heat rolling off him in waves that Star Platinum's aura deflected like a shield. Kaguya shifted dimensions. The lava world folded and was replaced by an ice world, a frozen wasteland where the cold was absolute and the ground was white and the sky was empty. Naruto landed on ice. He didn't slow down. She shifted again. A world of crushing gravity, where the ground pulled at everything with a force 10 times normal, where standing upright was an achievement and moving was a fantasy. Naruto walked. Star Platinum braced against the gravity, its fists pushing against the force, the way a man pushes against a strong current. Each step was effort. Each step was forward. The gravity pressed and pressed, and Star Platinum pushed and pushed, and the result was a stalemate that Naruto broke through sheer refusal to stop. Kaguya shifted again. A void. Empty space. Nothing above, nothing below. A pocket dimension of absolute emptiness where direction didn't exist and distance was a suggestion. Naruto stood in the void and looked at the god floating in front of him. "You've run out of rooms," he said. Kaguya formed the expansive truth-seeking orb. A sphere of annihilation, every element combined, every nature transformation unified, a ball of destruction that erased anything it touched from existence. It grew. It expanded. It filled the empty dimension with its presence until the void had a center, and that center was death. She launched it. Aura, 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 aura. Star Platinum met the truth-seeking orb head-on, fists against annihilation. The impacts were explosions of conflicting force, the orb trying to erase, the stand trying to break. Each punch compressed the sphere. Each hit fractured its surface. The stand's fists hit harder than the orb could erase, faster than the orb could regenerate, With more force than the orb could contain, the truth-seeking orb cracked. Fragments of annihilation energy splintered off and dissipated into the void. The sphere shrank under the barrage, compressed by force that exceeded its capacity, until Star Platinum's final punch drove through the center, and the orb detonated outward in a flash of light that filled the empty dimension from wall to non-existent wall. When the light faded, Naruto was standing. His coat was shredded below the waist. His hat had a hole in the brim. Blood ran from his lip. The first blood an enemy had drawn from him in the entire war. He wiped it with his thumb. "Not bad," he said, "for a god." Kaguya floated before him. Her composure was cracked. The serene, divine detachment that she'd worn like a mask was gone, replaced by something that looked disturbingly human. Uncertainty. She had thrown everything. Dimensions, gravity, ash bones, the truth-seeking orb, the full arsenal of a being who had been the pinnacle of power since before shinobi existed. And the boy was still standing. The boy was still standing. She opened her mouth. The first words she'd spoken. "What are you?" Naruto pulled his hat low. The torn brim cast a fractured shadow across his face. "Someone who's been fighting things like you for longer than you think." Kaguya launched forward. The god attacked. Personally, physically, the way ancient things attack when they run out of techniques and fall back on the primal fury that predates strategy. Her Rinne Sharingan blazed. Her hair became a weapon, white strands extending, sharpening, striking from every angle. Star Platinum caught the hair, caught the strikes, caught the god's own hands when she reached for his face with fingers that could dissolve chakra networks on contact. The grapple lasted 3 seconds. 3 seconds of a human stand and a divine being locked together, force against force, the void around them fracturing from the pressure. Then Sasuke was there. He came through a dimension tear of his own. Rinnegan blazing, the Rinne Sharingan he'd gained through the war burning in his left eye. He appeared behind Kaguya with his hand extended, the sealing formula already forming on his palm. "Now," Sasuke shouted. Naruto understood. The seal required 2 points of contact, 2 hands, 2 descendants of the Sage of Six Paths, one carrying Indra's chakra, one carrying Ashura's. Star Platinum held Kaguya in place. The stand's grip was iron, invisible, unstoppable, coming from a dimension that Kaguya's Rinne Sharingan could perceive but not counter, because Star Platinum existed outside the framework she was built to dominate. Naruto pressed his palm against Kaguya's chest. Sasuke pressed his against her back. The seal activated. Light erupted. The kind of light that doesn't belong in any dimension. White, total, the light of beginnings and endings and the space between. It consumed Kaguya. She screamed, the sound of something immortal encountering finality for the first time. The seal pulled her inward, compressed her, reduced a god to a point of light that folded into itself and vanished. The void collapsed. The dimension sealed behind them. Naruto and Sasuke were thrown back to the real world. The battlefield, the sky, the ground, the reality that had been waiting for them to finish saving it. They landed on the battlefield. Hard. Naruto on his feet, Sasuke on one knee. The allied forces stared. The sky was normal. The moon was normal. The world was normal. Kaguya was gone. Naruto stood up. He looked at the sky. Real sky. Blue, unchanged. "Yar yar days," he said. Took long enough. The cheering started somewhere in the back lines and rolled forward like a wave. 10,000 shinobi screaming. Relief and triumph and the hysterical joy of people who had genuinely expected to die today and hadn't. Naruto didn't join the cheering. He looked at Sasuke. Sasuke looked back. They both knew this wasn't over. It happened at the Valley of the End. Again. Because some places are stages that the universe keeps using for the same performance. Sasuke stood on Madara's statue. Naruto stood on Hashirama's. The waterfall roared between them. The river churned. The stone faces looked down with the same expression they'd worn when 2 12-year-olds had fought here 3 years ago. "You know what I'm gonna do," Sasuke said. His Rinnegan burned. His Mangekyou spun. His body carried the power of a war survived, and a god defeated, and a lifetime of rage refined into a blade. He wanted the tailed beasts. He wanted the Kage system dismantled. He wanted a revolution, a world reshaped by a single hand, his hand, the hand of the last Uchiha, the man who had suffered enough to earn the right to decide what suffering meant. He believed he was right. He always believed he was right. "You know I'm going to stop you," Naruto said. "I know you're going to try." Yar days. You still don't get it. Sasuke moved first. He came down from the statue in a blaze of purple and black. Susanoo forming around him, the perfect version, armored and armed and fueled by the Rinnegan's boundless power. It was stronger than the last one Naruto had broken. Heavier. The sword it carried was charged with Amaterasu and lightning and something else, something that belonged to the Six Paths power that Sasuke had absorbed. He swung. The valley shook. The waterfall split. The sword carved through the air with enough force to separate the earth beneath it. Star Platinum met the sword. The impact was a detonation that stripped the vegetation from both sides of the valley. Water from the falls vaporized in a sphere around the point of contact. The shockwave rolled out for miles, bending trees and flattening grass, and announcing to everyone within earshot that something impossible was happening at the Valley of the End. Naruto pushed forward, into the Susanoo. Star Platinum's fists tore through the construct's layers, outer armor, inner armor, the ribcage, the arms. Each layer cracked under the barrage. Each hit sent fractures spreading through the chakra construct. The Susanoo tried to regenerate. Star Platinum broke it faster than it could reform. Sasuke abandoned the Susanoo. He dropped out of the construct and came at Naruto directly, Chidori screaming in his left hand, Amaterasu burning in his right eye, his body moving at Rinnegan-enhanced speed. Star Platinum caught the Chidori. The lightning crackled against the invisible fist and died. The black flames of Amaterasu reached for Naruto's body and bounced off Star Platinum's aura. They fought at close range. Sasuke's taijutsu was exceptional. Years of Orochimaru's training, years of combat, the Sharingan predicting every incoming strike. He dodged 2 of Star Platinum's punches. He deflected a third with his sword. He landed a kick on Naruto's side that actually pushed the taller boy back a step. A step. 1 step. The first ground Naruto had ever given to Sasuke, ever. Sasuke's eyes widened. Hope flared in them. Irrational, desperate, the hope of a man who had just discovered that the wall might have a crack. Naruto looked at him. 1 blue eye visible under the hat. "That was good," he said. Then he hit Sasuke with everything. Aura, 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 aura. The barrage launched Sasuke across the valley. He hit the water. He bounced. He hit it again. He skipped across the surface of the river like a stone thrown by a giant, each impact sending geysers into the air. He hit the far cliff face and cratered into the stone. He slid down. He hit the water. He was on his knees in the shallows, blood running from his mouth, his Rinnegan flickering, his body held together by willpower and the Uchiha refusal to stay down. Naruto walked across the water, step by step. The ripples spread beneath his boots. Sasuke looked up at him. His eyes were wet. It was pain. It was something else. It was everything he'd been carrying since the night Itachi left him alive in a house full of corpses. "Why do you keep—" "You asked me to stop you," Naruto said. "So I stopped you." A long silence. The waterfall filled it. The river carried it. "What now?" Sasuke asked. His voice was raw, broken, honest for the first time in years. "You go home. You rebuild. You live with what you did, and you do something useful about it. You're not gonna kill me. I told you years ago. Stay down." He extended his hand. Sasuke stared at it. At the scarred knuckles. At the Joestar birthmark on the palm. At the hand of a man who had hit him harder than anyone in history and was now offering to pull him up. He took it. Naruto pulled him out of the water. They stood together in the shallows, bleeding, bruised, as the valley destroyed around them for the second time. Yar days, Naruto said. "What a pain." Sasuke made a sound. It took Naruto a moment to recognize it. He was laughing. It was a broken, exhausted, entirely inappropriate laugh. The laugh of a man who had just been beaten so thoroughly that the only possible response was to find it funny. It didn't last long, a few seconds. Then it was gone, replaced by silence and the river and the long road home. They walked back together. The years after the war were quiet. Sasuke accepted his judgment. He lost his arm, declined the prosthetic Tsunade offered, said the absence was a reminder he needed. He left the village on a journey of atonement, walking the same roads his brother had walked, carrying the same weight. Before he left, he stood at the village gates and looked at Naruto. "I'll come back," Sasuke said. "I know. When I do, I'll be here. Sasuke nodded. He turned. He walked into the distance. Naruto watched him go. Then he turned around and went home. Konoha rebuilt. Again, the village was getting good at it. Every generation seemed to involve at least one catastrophic destruction event, followed by a reconstruction montage. New buildings went up. The walls were reinforced. The Hokage monument received new work, repairs to the stone faces, fresh paint on Tsunade's likeness. And people started talking about the next Hokage. Naruto's name was on every list. Everyone. The council, the Jonin commanders, the daimyo's advisory board, the civilian population, who had watched a 15-year-old boy walk through the ruins of their village after Pain's assault and knew with the certainty that survivors have who had kept them alive. Tsunade called him into her office. She was sitting behind the desk, the same desk that had broken under her fist at least 4 times during her tenure, with a cup of sake and a stack of documents and the particular expression of a woman who was about to have a conversation she already knew the outcome of. "Sit down, Naruto." He sat. The chair was too small. It was always too small. "There are people who want you to be Hokage." He looked at her. "I don't want to be Hokage." "I know. I'm asking anyway." Yar days. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting." He adjusted his hat. "I'm not a politician. I'm not a leader. I don't want to sit in this office and read documents and approve missions and smile at diplomats. That's your job, or someone else's, someone who cares about it. You care about this village. I care about the people in this village. There's a difference. I don't need a hat and a title to protect them." Tsunade looked at him for a long time. Then she laughed. A short, sharp laugh that sounded like relief. "You know what? Fair enough." She poured sake. "Who should I recommend? Kakashi." "Kakashi hates the idea of being Hokage. That's why he'd be good at it. The best leaders are the ones who don't want the power." Tsunade considered this. Then she drank her sake. "When did you get wise?" "I was born wise. It's been a curse ever since." She laughed again. He left. Kakashi became the 6th Hokage. He complained about it constantly. He was excellent at it. Naruto stayed. He stayed in the village. He kept it safe the way he always had, not through policy or administration, but through presence. His presence was the village's strongest defense. Every intelligence agency in the world knew that Konoha had something they couldn't classify, something they couldn't counter, something that had defeated a god and walked home without changing expression. The deterrent was total. Alliances were signed. Treaties were honored. The peace held. He fished. He read magazines. He trained in the mornings. The same routine, push-ups, sit-ups, weight work, maintenance for a body that was already a monument. He sat on the Hokage monument in the evenings and watched the sunset and said nothing. And then there was Hinata. Didn't it happen the way anyone expected? There was no dramatic confession, no love letter, no tearful declaration under a cherry blossom tree. What happened was simpler. Naruto was fishing at the pond in Training Ground 3. It was evening. The crickets were loud. The water was still. Hinata walked up and sat down next to him. She didn't say anything. She sat. She watched the water. She breathed. Naruto looked at her. She didn't faint. She didn't blush. She didn't stammer. She sat beside him with a quiet strength that had been building for years. Through training, through war, through a lifetime of loving someone from a distance, and finally deciding that distance was a choice she could unmake. They sat in silence for an hour. The fish didn't bite. "You're not loud today," Naruto said eventually. "I can be if you want." "I don't want." More silence. "Do you want to have dinner?" Her voice was steady. Her hands were in her lap, her eyes were on the water. Naruto looked at her. Really looked at her. The way he hadn't before. Because he'd been too busy fighting gods and saving villages and being the embodiment of a dead man's legacy to notice the woman who had been standing at the edge of his life for years, waiting with a patience that matched his own. She was strong. She'd fought in the war. She'd protected people with her body when her techniques ran out. She was kind in the way that didn't ask for anything in return. She was quiet in the way that complimented his silence instead of filling it. "Yeah," he said. "Sure." Hinata smiled. A small, warm, genuine smile that had nothing to do with fainting or blushing or any of the frantic energy she'd carried as a girl. She'd grown up. They both had. They had dinner. They had another, and another, Naruto discovered, over the course of several months, that Hinata Hyuga was the only person in the world who could sit next to him for 4 hours without saying a word and not make it feel empty. She understood silence. She inhabited it the way he did, as a space for thinking and being, as evidence that two people can be together without performing togetherness. She also made the best rice balls he'd ever tasted. He'd known this since she was 12, and he'd eaten her lunch while she was unconscious, but the quality had improved with age. They were married in a small ceremony. Kakashi officiated, because he was the Hokage, and because Naruto had told him to. Sakura was the maid of honor. Sasuke, who had returned for the occasion, stood as best man and said nothing the entire time, but showed up in a clean shirt, which for Sasuke was the equivalent of an emotional breakdown. Jiraiya couldn't attend. He died before the war, killed by pain, the same pain that Naruto had destroyed. His death was one of the reasons Naruto had walked to the center of the destruction that day with something in his chest that was heavier than rage. Naruto stood at Jiraiya's memorial after the wedding, alone, in the dark. He placed a cup of sake on the stone. "I got married, old man. She's quiet. You'd hate that." He stood for a while. "Thank you for the road, for the stories, for giving me a reason to fish in places I'd never been." Star Platinum's presence hummed behind him, warm, present, a piece of his soul acknowledging the grief. "Good grief," Naruto murmured. "I'm getting sentimental." He went home to his wife. Boruto was born screaming, loud, so loud. The kind of screaming that bounced off hospital walls and made nurses flinch and announced to the entire maternity ward that this child had arrived and intended everyone to know about it. Naruto held his son for the first time and looked down at a tiny, furious face with whisker marks and bright blue eyes and a mouth that was already complaining about the temperature, the lighting, and the general inconvenience of being born. "Yakamashi," Naruto said. Hinata, exhausted and smiling from the bed, threw a pillow at his head. Star Platinum caught it. Boruto grew up loud. He grew up impulsive. He grew up with his mother's eyes and his father's stubbornness, and absolutely none of his father's emotional discipline. He was everything Naruto wasn't: expressive, dramatic, perpetually in motion, the kind of child who expressed every feeling at maximum volume and considered an indoor voice an insult to his principles. Naruto loved him immediately and completely, and expressed this by calling him Yakamashi twice a day and meaning it as the deepest affection he was capable of articulating. "Dad, Dad, watch! Dad, I learned a new Yakamashi. Shut up, you're annoying. But Dad, show me after dinner. You always say that, and you always show me after dinner. See? The system works." Boruto was 6 when he first saw Star Platinum. It was an accident. Naruto was in the backyard fixing a fence post that Boruto had broken by running into it at full speed because he'd been pretending to be a ninja and hadn't mastered the concept of braking. Star Platinum was holding the post in place while Naruto hammered. Boruto came around the corner and stopped. He stared. His mouth fell open. Star Platinum, 7 feet tall, violet-skinned, golden-eyed, a mass of muscle and presence and otherworldly power, was standing in the backyard holding a fence post with one hand and looking at the small boy with an expression that was as close to curiosity as a Stan's face could manage. Boruto screamed. The scream was impressively sustained. It started at a pitch that dogs in neighboring districts could hear and maintained that pitch for approximately 8 seconds, during which Boruto fell over, scrambled backward, hit the garden wall, and continued screaming from a seated position. Naruto looked at his son, then at Star Platinum, then back at his son. "Yar yar, he screams like your mother." Hinata appeared in the doorway. She looked at the scene. Boruto screaming on the ground, Star Platinum standing over a fence post, Naruto hammering with complete indifference. "Naruto," she said, and her voice carried the specific temperature of a woman who loved her husband very much and was about to make him very uncomfortable. "Did you just let our 6-year-old son see your stand without any preparation? He came around the corner. You could have dismissed it. I was holding the post. You're sleeping on the couch." Naruto looked at Star Platinum. Star Platinum looked back. Neither of them offered an opinion on the sleeping arrangements. Boruto eventually stopped screaming. He sat on the ground and stared at Star Platinum with the wide-eyed intensity of a child encountering something so far beyond his understanding that his brain was forced to create an entirely new category for it. "Dad," he whispered, "what is that?" "Star Platinum." "What does it do?" "It hits things." "Can I have one?" "No." "Why not?" "Because it's mine. Go wash your hands for dinner." Boruto ran inside, vibrating with a mixture of terror and excitement that would define his relationship with his father's Sensei, stand for the next decade. He told every kid at the academy about it the next day. Nobody believed him. He spent the rest of the week trying to prove it by standing behind his father and pointing and shouting, "Look! Look behind him!" Nobody could see Star Platinum. Boruto did not take this well. Himawari, the second child, born 2 years after Boruto, was the opposite. She was quiet, calm. She had Naruto's eyes and Hinata's temperament and a Byakugan that she could activate when she sneezed, which she did exactly once and knocked Naruto unconscious for 3 minutes by hitting his Tenketsu points. It was the only time anyone had ever rendered Naruto Uzumaki unconscious. He told no one. Hinata told everyone. Boruto laughed for 2 hours. "Yakamashi," Naruto said, lying on the kitchen floor. "All of you." Star Platinum hovered behind him, having done nothing to prevent his daughter from knocking him out, because Star Platinum apparently had opinions about who counted as a threat, and a sneezing toddler did not make the list. The years flowed, like rivers, like the waterfall at the Valley of the End, which had been repaired twice now and was starting to feel personal about it. Naruto watched his children grow. He attended Boruto's academy ceremonies, standing in the back, hat low, arms crossed, the tallest person in the room, saying nothing while parents around him chatted and photographed and fussed. When Boruto graduated, Naruto gave him a nod. One nod. Boruto yelled, "That's all I get? A nod?" And Naruto said, "That's what I got. It was enough." It was enough. Boruto wore his headband every day after that. Sasuke visited, infrequently. He'd appear at the village gates with his one arm and his cloak and the particular energy of a man on an endless walk, and he'd stay for a day or two and then leave. He'd train with Boruto sometimes, at Naruto's request. "Teach him the Uchiha fire technique," Naruto had said. "He's not an Uchiha. He's a brat who needs to learn discipline. You're the most disciplined person I know." Sasuke had stared at him for a long time, then snorted. It was the closest thing to a laugh Sasuke had produced in years. He taught Boruto. Boruto was terrible at it. He got better. Sasuke came back more often. The world was at peace. The kind of peace that the previous generation had fought and died and been resurrected for. It wasn't perfect. It was real. Real peace, with real problems and real disagreements and real negotiations, all conducted under the understanding that the man in the black coat was still in the village, and the man in the black coat had once punched a meteor. This understanding kept the peace more effectively than any treaty ever signed. And on evenings when the world was quiet enough, Naruto went to the memorial stone. He went alone, always alone. In the late evening, when the training grounds were empty and the light was going from gold to gray, and the village hummed in the distance like something alive and breathing and worth protecting, he stood where he always stood, in front of the stone. The names carved into its surface: Obito, Rin, Jiraiya, Asuma Neji, who had died in the war taking a blow meant for someone else, the third Hokage. Hundreds of others, thousands. He thought about Jotaro Kujo, the man he'd been, the life he'd lived, the desert road with friends who were dead now, the prison cell where Star Platinum first appeared, Dio's golden hair in the Egyptian moonlight, Kakyoin's last message written in emerald pointing at a clock, Polnareff's silver sword and ridiculous hair and the heart underneath both, Avdol's flames, Iggy's stubbornness, Joseph's laugh, loud, obnoxious, impossible, the laugh of a man who refused to die and mostly succeeded. He thought about what Jotaro would think of all of this. A reincarnation, a ninja village, a wife who made rice balls, a son who screamed louder than any stand rush, a world of chakra and gods and wars that ended because a stand user walked in and punched things until they stopped being problems. Jotaro would say it was a pain. Jotaro would also be satisfied. Naruto touched the stone, once, briefly, the way he always did. He felt the names under his fingers, the weight of them, the cost. "Good grief," he said, "all of you, keeping me busy across 2 lifetimes. Star Platinum hovered behind him, massive, violet, golden-eyed. The stand's presence was warm, a warmth that had nothing to do with temperature and everything to do with the bond between a soul and its fighting spirit. Star Platinum had been there for everything. Every fight, every loss, every victory, every moment when Naruto sat in silence and let the weight of existence press down on him like gravity. The stand's hand rested on his back, invisible, unfelt by anyone in the world except the man it belonged to. Naruto closed his eyes. He breathed. He let the evening air fill his lungs and the sound of the village fill his ears, and the presence of his stand fill the space behind him. Then he opened his eyes. He turned, he walked back to the village, to his home, to the house where his wife was making dinner and his son was being loud and his daughter was being quiet and the world was being the world, imperfect, difficult, full of people who would never understand what he was or what he'd done or what it had cost. That was fine. He'd never done any of it for understanding. The hat was pulled low. The coat was clean. Hinata had washed it that morning, the same coat, maintained and repaired across years and fights, and the particular wear that comes from being worn by a man who refuses to buy a second one. The gold chain glinted in the dusk light. Star Platinum drifted behind him like a second shadow, massive, silent, ready, always ready. A fighting spirit born from a soul that had crossed death and rebirth and the void between universes, and had arrived on the other side exactly the same, stubborn, powerful, and deeply profoundly annoyed by the inconvenience of being needed by the world. The sunset painted the village in orange and gold. The Hokage monument's faces looked down from the mountain. Hashirama, Tobirama, Hiruzen, Minato, Tsunade, Kakashi. Each one a different kind of strength. Each one a different answer to the question of what it meant to protect something. Naruto's answer had always been the simplest. He walked toward what needed protecting, and then he hit whatever was threatening it until it stopped. He reached his front door. From inside, he heard Boruto yelling about something, Himawari laughing, Hinata saying, "Keep your voice down," in a tone that suggested she knew full well that no Uzumaki had ever kept their voice down about anything. He put his hand on the door. Star Platinum's presence receded, pulling back, settling into the quiet space behind his soul where it lived between fights. The aura dimmed, the golden eyes closed, the fists uncurled. It would be back. It was always back. The moment something threatened what mattered. The people inside this house, the people inside this village, the people across this world who had never met Naruto Uzumaki and owed their peace to the fact that he existed. Star Platinum would return, blazing, furious, unstoppable. But right now, the world was quiet, and quiet was earned. Naruto opened the door. "I'm home," he said. Dad, Himawari hit me with the, "That's not true," Boruto started. "Naruto, take off your shoes before you come in." The noise hit him like a wall, warm and chaotic and alive, and his Naruto Uzumaki took off his shoes. He hung his hat on the hook. He walked into his home. He sat down at the table. Hinata placed a bowl of rice in front of him. Boruto was still yelling. Himawari was denying everything with the conviction of a Hyuga who had learned from the best. The house was loud and messy and full of the kind of love that doesn't announce itself because it's too busy being everywhere at once. He picked up his chopsticks. He ate. Star Platinum rested. The sun went down, and somewhere, in the space between souls where memories live after the bodies that made them are gone, a man in a torn coat and a hat that merged with his hair stood in an ocean of white light and watched through eyes that had crossed the boundary of everything. Jotaro Kujo looked at the life his soul had built in a world he'd never imagined. He saw the village, the family, the fights won and the friends lost, and the boy who had grown into a man who was everything Jotaro had been, and something Jotaro had never managed to become, at peace. The corner of his mouth twitched. The barest hint of a smile, the kind that Jotaro Kujo had given maybe 5 times in his entire life, and never when anyone was watching. "Yar yar days," he said, and meant it as a benediction. The light held. The world turned. Naruto Uzumaki finished his dinner, told his son to be quiet, kissed his daughter on the head, and sat on the porch with his wife while the stars came out over a village that was still standing because a man with a stand had decided, across 2 lives and 100 fights and the infinite space between what is and what should be, that it would. He reached for Hinata's hand. She took it. They watched the stars. Yar days, Naruto murmured. Hinata leaned against his shoulder. The night was quiet. The story was over, and it had been loud enough.
And that's the story of Naruto Uzumaki, the man who stopped time, held the line, and never once broke a sweat doing it. If this hit different, smash that like button and subscribe, because we've got more stories where legends get the endings they actually deserve. Drop your reaction in the comments. We read every single one. See you in the next one.